What's up, guys? Welcome to Rekieta Law. Law-splaining the interwebs with Rekieta Law, a small law firm in central Minnesota. I am your host, Nick Rekieta. I did that intro completely different than I normally do, and I don't know why. I could not tell you if you asked me. Tonight's a little disjointed, a little bit different. I have a couple topics I can talk about, but mostly, guys, I'm here for a couple reasons. Let me tell you what I'm here for. I've got this much whiskey left. This has been a great bottle of whiskey. Lady Rackets really wants me to take the bottle home, not the whiskey, because I've collected. I think I've preserved one of every type of whiskey bottle that I've had on the stream or on the show. Although there have been a couple repeat offenders, and I've only kept one of each of those bottles. So I've got that much whiskey that needs to get taken care of tonight. I've also got this remaining amount of wine from the Trump Vineyard. I know this is backwards. That's because I've got a little bit different things going, so you're getting a mirror image, but that is a Cabernet Sauvignon from the Trump Vineyards. It was brought to me by my good friend, Almonds. If you know who Almonds is, I got to spend some time with him and his family today. Always pleasure to do that. And so I've got to finish up that Trump wine because that bottle's got to come home as well. And then I'm not going to finish this one, I don't think. But I've got to have about another glass from this red here, this Côtes du Rhône, I don't know. It's a good one. It's a good one. So some of this alcohol has to be consumed. It is my sovereign duty to do so. And we're going to take care of that. We're going to talk some legal topics. We can talk other topics. We can talk whatever you guys want to talk about tonight. And this will be my last stream away from home. I will be back home tomorrow late. I will not be streaming tomorrow. I don't think I'll have a show on Sunday, but things will resume on Monday, either with a live stream or with a planned, prepared video. I do need to release another one of those very soon. And there's a lot of topics to talk about, so we'll figure out what those will be. And then, of course, there will be a full streaming schedule next week. So, the Trump wine is actually very good. The Trump wine is actually very, very good. It's a very smooth cab. It's a little dry. It is not bitter in the slightest. It is not overly sweet. It's a good one. I was actually thoroughly impressed. And because Trump does, let's be real, Trump puts his name on some shady products, right? Not all of them are hits, but the vineyards at Monticello and the winery there are apparently quite good. And I would strongly recommend it if you like a nice dry red. Nice smooth dry red. That's a good amount of whiskey. Oh. Kiwi Farms. Check Discord real quick. Sent me a legal paper worth reading. Let me see what we got here. Commonwealth versus Stoutzenberger. Hold on here. Stoutzenberger was convicted of involuntary deviant sexual intercourse with a child, as well as 2 counts of indecent assault of a person less than 13 years old. Oh. Oh boy. Who is Stoutzenberger? Should I know who this person is? Let's see. What do we got? So, yeah, Josh, if you could fill me in a little bit on what that case is about, I'd really appreciate it. In the meanwhile, I'm going to have a sip of whiskey. Bully Cabal member 1488. You say we need a Sriracha Greer stream? Well, I've got good news for you. Next week is the scheduled Sriracha Greer stream. Scheduled as far as I'm concerned. I have to verify with Sriracha. I would imagine that would be on Wednesday, unless something goes wrong. So Wednesday evening, if you like the Greer streams, you can look forward to that. We got a couple chats in here. Let's talk about those. Siren Jag says, shut up, liver, you're fine. And as far as I know, my liver is functioning fully and properly. I was recently checked by my doctor, and to my surprise, I got absolutely nothing wrong with me currently, which is very strange. But, that's good. Other than the usual, the narcolepsy, the heat allergy, all that stuff. That's still very much there. But as far as basic bodily functions and organ operations and levels of everything, I'm pretty much in the healthy area. And liver was not a concern at all. So I am concerned about hearing random footsteps. That said, next we've got Rekieta. It says, don't give YouTube your money. That is correct. Don't give YouTube your money. You know what, guys? Give me 1 second. We're going to try something weird. So people have been bothering me about a pop filter. And I said I have my pop filter at home. I didn't bring it with me. I won't make that mistake again. But in the meanwhile, they said just slip a sock over the microphone. So give me 1 second. We're going to try that out. So here we go. I don't know if this helps. I'm now talking into a sock. I feel like I'm yelling at a miniature KKK member right here on the stream. So it's kind of weird. You shut up, Robert Byrd. Let's see. What do we got? Nick Bate. Oh. Is this the guy? Kiwi Farms. Is this the guy who had like the flash drive, literally, with child porn on it, around his neck? Or no, that was someone else. That was child porn. This is a pedophile. So Nick Bate was a notorious pedophile who openly bragged about it for years online. State nailed him with online chat logs on Encyclopedia Dramatica. If you have a Hangouts or Discord thing, let me know. I'd be able to talk about it for sure. I did a brief stream on it. Yeah, buddy. Yeah, actually, I do have a Hangouts. I'll bring you on in just a second. Let me see how to get you a Hangout link, because I don't have Discord on my streaming computer. Just a minute. And in the meanwhile, yes, so it says don't give YouTube your money, and absolutely don't give YouTube your money. I mean, if you want to super chat through YouTube, I will, of course, appreciate any of that. However, I present to you an alternative of the Justice Chat option. It is linked in the description. It goes through PayPal and Streamlabs, and I get to keep considerably more of the money. YouTube gets to keep basically nothing. So if you do want to chat, it will pop up in the green box, which is up here on the camera. And yeah, that would be much appreciated. And it will pop up in there. And then of course I will read all of them that do come in. Let me get you a link, buddy. And pardon me, guys, for this being just an absolute casual stream. Don't expect high efficiency here. Whoops. Stream is doxed anyway. Actually, you don't have the whole link, but that's fine. Hold on. Oh my goodness. I gotta send this a different way. 1 second. So we'll talk about this pedophile here with Josh in just a second. The other thing we can do, dear Lord, why is this not working? A couple people have been asking me to talk about FPS Russia's case. I haven't read the case against him. I did see the charges that they've brought against him, which are all, various federal charges related to having guns and drugs near each other. A big no-no. But I haven't looked into it. I would love to do so, and I plan on doing so in the very near future. Also, I would love to appear on Painkillers Anonymous, and someone said that they were going to make that happen, although I don't think they were actually officially part of Painkillers Anonymous, so I don't, take that for what you will. Just a second, let me get my headphones on so I can hear Mr. Kiwi Farms himself when he gets on. All right. Okay. Let's get this stuff pulled back up here. Let's see. What is my stance on banning loli/Shota stuff? I'm not for banning anything like that because it's not illegal. I don't necessarily think it's a good thing. I've had several guests who have made some pretty Painkiller already. Yes. I'm so terrible. Maybe it should be Painkillers Anonymous. Hey, what's up, buddy? Welcome to the stream. You're muted, so you can unmute yourself. Oh, there you are. No, go ahead. Right. Oh, wait. I've got you muted. My fault. You're not muted to me. You're muted to the stream. Yes. Okay. Sorry.
I do it all the time. All the time. I have audio channels wrong when I stream. I can't get used to it.
Yeah. Well, and that's because we all grew up in 1951. Before the internet was created.
No,
Sorry.
I'm probably younger than most of your viewers. I'm just dumb.
Yeah.
But,
what we'll do is I'll mute you again, and you say everything, and I'll relay it word for word to them. That'll be more interesting, I think. No, I'm just kidding.
I was confused. Like, oh no, that sounds like a bad idea. How do I phrase it?
That sounds absolutely terrible. No, I've got you unmuted now, so if you could start over. I apologize, good sir.
No worries.
Boomered this into oblivion, but go for it.
Okay, so after Christian became popular, and after he was the ground zero for the whole like stalking a specific weirdo on the internet. People got bored of him and started looking for other people. And one of the people they found was Nick Bate, who was an open pedophile, just completely unashamed about it. And I think he realized he has like I never want to defend Nick Bate because we actually have a rule on the Kiwi Farms about not getting angry about people we have threads on.
Right,
Nick
right.
Bate is
And
is
not
the sole
harassing
exception.
them, correct?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, no, never, don't try to screw with them because it's not funny. You're not funny enough to get good results out of doing it. You just don't.
laugh from a distance.
And don't if you're not laughing, you're not doing it right. Nick Bate is impossible to laugh at. He is truly indefensible. But to his credit, I guess he's obviously somebody who gets off on being hated. He loves negative attention. He thrives on it, and he takes it to the umpteenth degree. He's like Amos Yee. I think Amos Yee is a pretty apt comparison in that he's willing to say absolutely anything, regardless of what trouble it gets him in, and that's just how he gets along. But it was a lot worse than people expected because at one point he told one of the girls he was stalking, I think her name was Anna, and he repeatedly declared her his wife and would write songs about having anal sex with her.
Oh,
And
that's charming.
yeah, he has a thing for butts and poop, and like when he got arrested for the crime he committed, I'll describe. He said there's no way he could have done that because it didn't involve any poo, and he released a video of him masturbating with poo, saying that because there was no poo involved, it couldn't have been him. It's a fake story. That we call that the Nick Bate defense. And
that's a good one. I'm back pocketing that.
it's much worse than the O.J. Simpson defense, in that if the glove don't fit, you must acquit, because Nick Bate did go to jail.
It didn't seem to be effective.
Nick Bate defense did not work. He was screwed, and we actually people were so happy about this. They went to the courtroom, and we have footage of him in like the orange jumpsuit and handcuffs being taken from the courthouse to the police car and stuff. Like people, I think we threw confetti on the site. Like the front page of the site had confetti animations. But what he talked about to Anna when he was doing these online chat logs, and like before 2010, I want to say it's like 2009 that this conversation happened. He basically told Anna that I don't remember exactly, but he basically said he kissed his cousin, who was very, very young, like on the butt cheek or something.
Under 13, if I understand from my very brief read of the document.
Yeah, it's not like he listed like sexual encounter, but it wasn't penetrative. It didn't seem too gross, but it was definitely illegal what he described. And over the chat logs, he did have contact with the police, but it was just his word, and he said it was a joke or something when they talked to him, so they didn't have much to go on. That changed in 2015, I want to say, because his cousin came forward and said that exactly what he said had happened. And according to the people who actually went to the trial and saw the witness testimony in person, apparently his description of events was actually much tamer than what had actually happened. And he refused to give a full account of it and said, I value her privacy or something, and I don't want to recount it. So he just said it suffices to say that it's beyond anybody's imagination. It wasn't for attention. If anything, he obfuscated details of what he did in the chat logs.
I've run into that before with someone who was accused of raping his own daughter. And he didn't want to. He was pleading guilty to it because he, quote, didn't want to bring her through the mess of a trial. It's like
that's considerate.
Yeah, I'm sure she thanks you, my friend.
But I mean, he got fucked. His sentence is 16 and a half to 40 years. for the sum of his crimes. And I'm sure, I don't know exactly how it works. Maybe you know for sure. But I'm pretty sure if you get convicted for a sex offense, especially one against a child, even once you're released, you have to go to like a halfway house, like a psychiatric holding, until you're deemed mentally like recuperated or your mental health issue is resolved. But they never let you out. Like you're permanently held as a mental patient if you're a released sex offender. Like that's what I've heard. I don't know how true that is.
It's state by state. It depends if you're state charged or if you're federally charged. Actually, if anybody's kind of curious about how some of this works, check out my interview with the pedophile. And we talked about this a little bit. If you're federally charged, the feds actually pay for your treatment. And if you're charged in the state, well, it depends on the state, but oftentimes you're on the hook for your own treatment. So yeah, it can kind of depend on where you are. And I guess maybe that's not good, right? Like what if you buy the bargain basement, the Costco psychiatric care for your pedophilia?
Well, I don't think there is no cure to it. I don't like. I have a very dismal opinion. I don't think that it can be resolved.
Yeah, and that was the interesting thing about him. He said there is no cure. He said you basically. He was admitting that he will have to be watched for his entire life by the people around him. He needed people to give him accountability because he would always be a risk to the people around.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I can't say the things I want to say on your stream because it might make YouTube leery. But
what is it? Is it like gas the pedos?
It's effectively, yeah. I think especially if there's video or that's my line because I try to have a very safe legal perspective. I like to take a benefit of a doubt whenever possible. But if there's DNA or video evidence of the abuse, there is no benefit of a doubt. And it should be an automatic expedited death penalty for anybody who is caught on camera or caught by DNA evidence raping a kid, because you can't fix them and you can't give them benefit of a doubt. So why even hold them in prison? Because it's just a waste of resources and time.
Yeah, and that's I think that's becoming a more and more common sort of perspective as people start to realize the prevalence and horror of the crime and like what it does. Like you're ruining a child. And
it's not just that though. It's like it's almost like vampirism, because once it happens, like the like almost always the kid ends up being gay and the kids end up being a pedophile themselves. It's like passing along a dark curse, and it makes me it frustrates me because you want to give kids a benefit of a doubt, especially, but like that's just the trend. You talk to these people and they almost always have been sexually assaulted themselves, and you don't know what to do, because on one hand you want to help the kids, but on the other hand it's like, can you help them at that point? Because it seems like once you're molested at that age, it locks in your attraction to what happened to you. And I don't know. I have a very dismal outlook regarding the whole thing.
Yeah, and I don't know where I stand, because as a lawyer I'm required to take the position, and I do on many levels, that everyone is entitled to a competent defense. But the problem is, sometimes a competent defense is a plea agreement because they're definitely guilty. I run into guilty people all the time, and what we do is figure out what the proper legal strategy is. Did the cops do their job in collecting the evidence? If they did, and you're guilty, we're talking plea. We're talking minimizing the sentence at that point, not trying to find some way to lie or weasel our way out of it. Now that doesn't always come up. There's a lot of gray area sometimes, but what you're talking about is video evidence or confirmation of assault on children, and of course that's a very different story.
My buddy once said his thing against the death penalty was that people get exonerated by new evidence all the time, but it's like, especially with that, there is no benefit of a doubt. You can't walk that back. There's nothing that you could ever possibly reveal that could take that away. So it's like the death penalty is the most relevant punishment, because you can't rehabilitate a pedophile, and there's no point trying to to err on the side of caution because there is no side of caution to err on. It happened. There's evidence of it that's irrefutable.
Yeah, and for people who are just tuning in and curious about my microphone, my mic is still frustrated from the Saturday stream I did with a couple other lawyers, in which I talked about the issues, my opinions on the issues with police officers and shooting black people. My microphone has joined the KKK, and there's not much I can do about it at the moment. So if you're wondering why it is wearing a white hood, that is why. So sorry for that, guys. That's just how it goes. What am I? What am I? The association police? No way. I hope the mic rethinks its decisions.
The microphone's a member of the neighborhood watch.
Yeah. Okay, so should I look through? I've got the document pulled up now. Is there anything you want me to address on the stream here? Because what he's doing is he's looking for post-conviction relief.
Yes. I don't know if he's trying to get. I think because he had two different appeals. He had an appeal in 2016. I think he filed for an appeal in 2017 that's just now getting resolved, and that's his appeal for relief.
Right.
And I think the first one was asking for a retrial. I'm not sure, what is the appeal for relief? Because they ultimately said, go fuck yourself. You're not getting anything. They systematically go through his points and say, well, you're saying that the defendant, the defense attorney, I don't know which, the defender, what's the name for the defense attorney? I want to say prosecutor.
Just a defense attorney.
The defense attorney did not bring up several things that he wished that the defense attorney had brought up. And the court goes through it. They have the defense attorney testify according to this paper. And they basically say, the things you wanted him to bring up weren't relevant to the case. So no, you get no relief. You don't pass go. You don't collect $200. You don't get a retrial. You don't get anything.
Yeah, that's kind of an interesting thing. I don't know. Did you happen to listen to the first season of Serial?
No, I don't watch any TV.
No, it was the podcast. It was a podcast called Serial. It's done by someone from public radio. The first season is actually quite good, and it talks about this case. It was a legal case, a murder case in Baltimore by this guy named Adnan Syed. He was 17 years old, and he allegedly murdered his girlfriend or ex-girlfriend. She was a Korean chick. He was Middle Eastern, I guess. Adnan Syed kind of sounds Middle Eastern, or maybe Somali. I'm not sure. I don't actually know. Doesn't really matter. So anyway, he was convicted of murdering this chick, and he brought up a lot of problems with what he perceived as problems with his defense attorney. Now, his defense attorney ended up having a terminal brain tumor.
Ooh, no shit.
Yeah, and died.
That's rough.
Yeah, she ended up dying, and it seems like she kind of threw the case. She stopped caring about her work, probably because she was about to die. And so he might have a case of incompetent things, but he was bringing up witnesses who had alibis and stuff like that. The problem is that his attorney not looking into some of these witnesses or not calling these witnesses actually was a valid use of attorney discretion. And sometimes you get stuck with that. And if the court, is we can't go back just because some attorney didn't call some witness.
But if she had a brain tumor, you'd think they would say.
Well, his case is a little different, but this is what I'm just citing this as the court's kind of perspective is, if we go back to every case where someone didn't call a witness, then we're going back to every case, right? There's always something else that could have been done. You can't retry a case every time. In his case, the alibi question is interesting. I need to follow up on it because I think Serial actually did prompt a new look at his case from the courts because they raised a lot of serious questions about how that prosecution was done. It was actually the first murder prosecution that used cell phone tower metadata to assist in a conviction. So it's a pretty cool one, and also it no one understood how cell phone tower metadata worked. So they're talking about, they pinged these towers and they're trying to pinpoint the location in Baltimore.
Well, it's a diameter of several miles in every direction.
Well, right. And in a city like Baltimore, you might ping one tower and it's busy, so your phone will ping the next tower, which could be miles in the opposite direction. That's just how it works. And the interesting thing is how the prosecution only used the favorable ping results to paint the map, and they didn't use any of the unfavorable ones. So it's a cool case. I would actually, if people are into podcasts, the first season of Serial, despite it sounding like some sort of horrifying NPR piece, the information in it is really good, and the story is great, and they do a very good job of it. Just the first season, though. I wouldn't really recommend the others. But
out of curiosity, that reminds me of another show that I did see maybe half of before I canceled my Netflix subscription. Did you ever watch Making a Murderer all the way through? That was big for a while.
Everybody asks me if I've watched it. I have not. I need to, because
now you need to.
Yeah,
because it's exactly like that. The whole thing is about you have these two rednecks, and I think they're both retarded. Like they're both if they're not retarded, they're like 80 IQ at tops. They're very slow people, and the allegation is basically that they took this chick off the street and they raped and murdered her. And the documentary lays out, at least from what I saw, it lays out that the county had issues with them because they were aggressive rednecks and they had interpersonal issues with the police department. Right. And the police and prosecutor had biases and they didn't. What's it called when you give up your seat because you have a bias?
Recuse.
They didn't recuse.
Sorry.
Sorry to catch you mid-drink. No, they didn't recuse themselves, and it was a shit show. And so, from what I saw, it seemed like half of people thought they were guilty as shit, and the other half said they weren't as guilty.
Yeah, and the hard part is someone's bringing up that the documentary was really bad because they left out a lot of stuff. The documentary, I don't know. Like, I'm not making a statement. Before anybody tries to crucify this, I'm not making an opinion. I do know that the prosecuting attorneys have slammed that documentary for glossing over several of the actual really bad issues in that case, and just painting a very favorable picture for Stephen Avery. So I don't know. I'd like to look at it at some point and maybe rummage through the documents, but I find like a lot of people want to hear about stuff that already happened, but at the same time, I think people really want to hear about stuff that's going on right now a lot more. And that's what I find when I look at like analytics and stuff, is that if I cover stuff that's already been covered like a couple years ago, going through older cases, people don't really seem to watch that much. And guys, the best metric I have to what people want to watch is what people actually do watch. So we'll see. If there could be a time that comes up where I have time to watch an entire Netflix series about a botched murder trial. But this is one thing that I've talked about a little bit. This is why I don't support the United States enacting the death penalty, even though I believe in the right of a sovereign nation to have the death penalty. They're bad at this stuff. They're really, really terrible at it. And if that Stephen Avery guy's innocent, like, should he be put to death for it? And I don't know if he is. But the prosecutors are bad at their job. Sometimes you get a bad defense attorney. Sometimes you get a bad client. Sometimes you just get bad situations with dishonest witnesses. And what do you do with that? Do we kill people over it? I don't know.
Well, somebody asked you in a super chat. I am curious. What is your opinion on Lolicon and Shadowcon? Because that's the big hot topic right now that everybody's talking about.
Yeah. Well, let me read these chats, and then I'll give you my 100% honest opinion on it in just a second. Because I don't mind talking about this stuff, even though it's weird. Okay, so this is from I'm Giant Tree. He says, "Hey Nick, I'd love to hear you talk about FPS Russia incident in Georgia." I will be talking about that. I was saying that just before Josh popped on here. So I will be talking about the FPS Russia incident or indictment. Sorry. I'll be talking about the indictment and looking at that case as much as possible. And I would love to get FPS Russia on the show if possible, but I would understand if he's not able to make it. We'll see. We'll see about that. Guns Beer Freedom says, if you're looking for legal topics, you could talk about state preemption with regards, or could you talk about state preemption with regards to cities and counties? Curious how it works in the legal level in practice. I can do that. I can't do that tonight because I would need to do a little more research on it. I don't run into those conflict of laws between state and cities and county, state and municipal law very often. So I would have to research that topic, but I can look into that because it is pretty interesting how supremacy works in the chain of supremacy. Devin says, build the wall, line up the pedos, 2 birds, 1 stone. I think it's a lot of stones to build the wall, though. Krillin876 says, did you guys discuss the Katrina Vetrano case? How did this guy get away with it? I have Karina Vetrano? I've never heard of that case. Have you?
No.
Okay, so no, we haven't discussed it. I don't know how that guy got away with it. If you've got something on it, send me a DM on Twitter with like a link and I can look at it. And Mithrin Emmer says, a documentary selectively presenting material, fetch my fainting couch and smelling salts. Yeah, and that's that's one thing to kind of keep in mind with this stuff, including with the Serial documentary. I think they did a good job. I actually think based on the information that they provided on Serial, they tried to keep a very neutral position when I think they really should have been almost advocating more for Adnan Syed, because his conviction looks really, like, even looking at it in the worst light, it looks like that kid was wrongfully convicted. Whether he murdered the person or not, I don't think they had the evidence to support the conviction that he got. I don't know why he was convicted by a jury. There's a lot of reasons why a jury will convict people, and you get a jury of 12 in a capital sort of case, but you really get a jury of probably two people in the jury room basically lead those jury rooms. That's how they play out. And there needs to be some forensic psychology or something done on the group dynamics of juries, because it would...
Why have I never been called for jury duty? I want to be on jury so bad. You've never been on jury?
Never been on jury.
My grandfather has been called in. He says like every year for decades, and every time he goes up in there, and the judge asks him, like, "Is there any reason you shouldn't be on the jury?" He says, "Sir, I'm a former police officer. These motherfuckers all guilty." And he's like, "Okay, so you're dismissed. Go home."
Yeah, I don't know. I've never been called. I'm 36. I'll be 37 in less than a month. And I've never been called for jury duty. Lady Rackets got called a couple years ago for her first jury duty. My mom was actually on a death penalty case.
Wow.
Years ago. And the guy was convicted and sentenced to death. He is now out of jail.
Huh. What?
And it has nothing to do with he definitely did the crime. It was on video in front of several witnesses.
How did he get acquitted?
He didn't. He got let out because he got old, and when he was about to get executed, he got stabbed. And you can't execute someone who's not recovered from their stab wound. And then in the time of his recovery, after getting stabbed, a new lawyer came in, and he got a new defense attorney to argue that he wasn't competent to stand trial. And they used as evidence this is back in the 80s, and this is right during the Iran-Contra stuff, right? Or right after, during the Iranian Revolution in the 80s. And this guy was trying to join, he had converted to Islam, and he was going to join his Iranian brothers in glorious revolution in Iran. And so this is why he murdered his McDonald's store manager and robbed the McDonald's. Uh-oh. Am I too loud? Okay, no. He robbed the McDonald's where he used to work, and then he put the manager down on his knees, had the guy put his hands behind his head, and he put a bullet into the back of his head, right? Executed him in front of a whole bunch of people, and then fled and tried to get his brother to drive him to Mexico, because this was in Texas. Tried to get his brother to drive him to Mexico, but his brother decided to drive him to the police station instead, because his brother was kind of a terrifying human being as well. So, they convicted him, and he had written all this poetry in the style of what you would read in like a metaphorical or allegorical stories of the Quran. And so he was writing poetry about the glorious revolution stuff. So then like 40 years, or no, not 40, I'm not that old, like 25 years later, they bring up these things and say, this guy is clearly insane and shouldn't have stood trial. And then a judge agreed, so he got out. So
That's bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah. This is a guy who very intentionally put a man on his knees and shot him in the back of the head. And he's walking the streets right now. He's alive. My dad would check up on him every couple of years and kind of see the status to see if he ever got executed. Nope, he's out. But no,
my dream is I want to be on a jury for some bullshit case, like for where the federal prosecutors are obviously trying to get rid of somebody who's causing problems.
Yeah,
I want to jury nullify before I die. It's on my bucket list. I can't say that. I can't say that to the judge. I don't know what a jury nullify is, but if they put me on that jury, I don't care what it is. It's getting nullified.
Yeah, and what's shocking is how. This is the crazy thing about nullification, guys. Okay, so no one can talk to you about this. Ooh, jury nullification, right? Like you literally, if you're in a trial and you mention jury nullification, if I were to mention jury nullification in a criminal trial,
it's mistrial immediately.
Yeah, it's a mistrial, and they have to throw it out or whatever. I could get in trouble for it. If you mention it as a potential juror, they will dismiss you. They might have to dismiss everybody in the room. It's like this weird secret, even though it's not a secret. It's very simple. You can only be found guilty by an anonymous verdict from all of the people on the jury. Or not anonymous, unanimous verdict. So all of them have to agree that you're guilty, which means if just one person holds out and will not agree with everybody else, you're not guilty.
That's different, isn't it? What you're referring to is as a hang jury.
Yeah,
Don't
that's
they just
a
retry
hung
it?
jury. Now, yes, you can also okay. Let me clarify. Yeah, that's a hung jury, and they have to decide if they want to retry the case at that point. Jury nullification specifically, like the specific jury nullification would be to convince everybody in the jury to specifically say not guilty, because they believe that the crime shouldn't be charged to the person, even if they think they committed the crime under the statute.
The best example of this would be, for instance, let's say that there is a guy in Texas being tried for having consensual sex with a 16 or 17-year-old, and it's abundantly clear the only reason he's on trial for this is that he owns some kind of distributed gun manufacturing system.
I feel this is a very specific hypothetical.
Just a hypothetical, and it's just obvious that the government wants to get rid of this guy.
No.
You can say, as a member of jury, if you convince everybody they're trying to take your guns and this guy needs to be acquitted, they can say that. They can get up there in front of the judge and say, we know he's guilty as shit, but we're acquitting him. There's nothing you can do about it because you're trying to take our guns. And that would just be amazing.
Yeah, and it'd be an interesting curveball to the underlying hypothetical if it was abundantly clear that the minor that the hypothetical person was alleged to engage in sexual intercourse with had clearly misrepresented her age to be over 18. That, I mean, and that would be one of those grounds where we want to say, do we really want people held accountable for something they can't know, the actual age of someone? They can only know what's represented to them. I mean, but that is a shockingly specific hypothetical. And yeah, it certainly does look like maybe there is a government interest in removing this said hypothetical person. I'm mad at him, by the way. Because he didn't come on my show before getting arrested by the government. So, little frustrated. He said he would, and then he didn't. That hypothetical person on my hypothetical show.
I got to talk to him, actually, because I was on Patreon very briefly. I was the only person kicked off of Patreon, just so you know.
Why did you get kicked off of Patreon?
My special friend threatened them with litigation, and he said, "I'm already up to my neck in shit right now. I can't deal with this."
Oh, that guy can. When that guy dies peacefully of natural causes, alone in his disgusting roach-infested apartment, like, how many celebrations are you going to throw? Like, are you going to have like a random like Arabic party where you're like shooting guns into the air and stuff?
I got my AK, my Soviet era AK wrapped up in packy tape. I'm just firing up in the air. No,
Like,
my thing is,
that's what I would do.
maybe it's just my sick head. I think I maybe have romanticized this too much. But I see him. The reason why I don't do anything, I've tried to talk to the British police and stuff about his obsession and how dangerous he is. But my thought is he is a constant. And if something happened to him, if he dropped dead, there would be another. Somebody would take it's the equal and opposite reaction of the form. And if he was gone, it would be somebody else.
It's some universal law that requires.
Yeah, it's a mathematical equilibrium. Who he is doesn't matter, but that it's like it's like when they don't have any pictures of black holes, but they can see the light being bent around these spots in space, and they know it's there, and they can estimate it. They can mathematically prove that a black hole exists, even though there's no photos of it. I can prove this guy will always be there, regardless if it's him or not. It's just a thing. It's a thing that exists that I have to deal with for the rest of my life.
Okay, I owe you an answer on the lolly thing, though. Okay, lolly is not illegal in the United States.
No.
So, no, don't ban it. Ever. Don't ban it. I don't know what else to say beyond that. If it's not illegal, it should not be banned. If it is illegal, it should only be banned because it's illegal. And that's about it. I'm very much like an absolutist on stuff like this. Man, I tread a thin line on child pornography too, because at some point, I entertain the possibility that there could be an artistic value. Like, for example, Michael Jackson, like, he owned vintage pictures of children in allegedly non-sexual positions. And I can entertain the possibility that there is an artistic use that could be non-pornographic. I don't know what that would look like. I don't really want to. And I don't know who would be consuming it. And even if they did, I don't really trust them, which is similar to lolly, right? Like, I don't really trust people who really get off on lolly. But at the same time, like, if I think we need to go as far as we can in protecting speech and artistic expression, and we may make an error on the side of protecting expression versus safety, and I think we should do that. Now, I think child pornography should remain illegal. Don't get me wrong, and don't misquote me on that. But what I'm saying is that I can conceive of some circumstance where something that many people would consider to be child pornography could not be and could have artistic value. And I'm not alone in that. The courts agree on that. There's actually lots of...
Do you want to, not to cut you off, do you want to hear? I know where you're going. I have a very developed opinion on this because I moderated... I moderated 8chan for a while, and I read up on what is the line, and I've read up for some. I'm such a fucking weirdo. I've read like Supreme Court judgments. I've read the entire DOS standard. I know it by heart. I know what constitutes. Do you know the DOS standard and the rules in it?
The DOS standard?
You never heard of the DOS? This is okay. This was not a law. It's a Supreme Court. Vocabulary is like leaking out of my ears right now. It's a precedent. They set rules on how to evaluate if something is child pornography. So I'll give you an example. Your mom has pictures of you in a photo album that are naked. Naked baby on the beach pictures, naked baby in the bathtub pictures.
Right.
Is that child pornography?
Probably not.
No, it's not. You take those photo albums, those exact same photo albums, and you stuff them in your creepy uncle's closet. Is that child pornography?
Oh, I see. So it's like a contextual standard. I
It
would
is
still say,
contextual.
um, okay.
It is. At that point, in fact, I'll give you two different things that are actually legal. You have issues of pedophiles in prison cutting out J.C. Penney catalogs
Right.
of kids in swimsuits. And those are J.C. Penney catalogs. They're the furthest thing from child pornography you could imagine. But when you have an envelope of those cutouts and somebody in a convicted sex offender's prison cell, they're child pornography by the DOS standard.
Okay, okay. I'll have to look into that. I haven't actually seen that standard, and the what I would hate to have to do, I would hate to have to be a defense attorney defending that.
Yeah, it
Like
would be taxing.
let's be clear, guys. My defense of speech is not a defense of what people do with it. There's lots of speech that I find absolutely reprehensible, but I think that's what we defend, right? And when I say the art excuse, I mean there's artistic value in taking a picture of your child. My wife and I have actually made very conscious efforts to take as few pictures of our children as possible that have any sort of potential exposure because, well, we don't know who will with them being taken on a phone or whatever, we don't know who would get their hands on them, and we don't want that for our children. But I understand when people are going to take a picture of their kid in a bathtub or their kid on the toilet for the first time or something. They could possibly get something in that picture that some people would be some horrific degenerate would find sexually arousing, and that person needs to consider a one-way flight to Greenland. And
To Greenland.
yeah, they need to do that.
There have been convictions for possession of drawn pornography of underage looking characters as child pornography in the United States because of the DOS standard. Because
Like Digibro.
I don't know the name of it. Perhaps that's the guy, but he was convicted. He had like shelves full of actual like hentai from Japan that was lolicon.
Wait, a guy was convicted in the U.S. for lolicon?
Yes, but not just for they were counted as items of child pornography, but that's because they caught him with actual child pornography. So in the context that he had those lolicon magazines next to real child pornography, suddenly the drawings become child pornography by the DOS standard. It's a very interesting law. And for instance, when we were moderating 8chan and we were implementing how we moderated, Frederick eventually just said no naked kids whatsoever. And the pedophiles got mad at him, and they're like, we should be able to, there are Supreme Court precedents that nudism, child nudism, like just nudism colonies and stuff, nudist beaches, that's not child pornography. And you have to explain to them that in the context of 8chan being a fucking degenerate place, it probably would be considered child pornography. And they got pissed. And it's like, this guy allows you to post all the creepy shit that you post. And they still get indignant about it even when you're trying to follow the law, if they don't agree with you. They're like, you would think that maybe they'd be ashamed of their shit, but they're not. They're
Yeah, I will say a accidental explosion of napalm at the next NAMBLA meeting is probably a beneficial thing for society. And like Kurt Eichenwald getting too many photo reactive GIFs or whatever, that would probably be a benefit to society too. Not wishing death on anybody except for all those dirty, disgusting pedos. I don't know. It's such a hard topic to deal with because, like taking like Gab, for example, has to navigate this because Gab has a hardline stance on lolly, right? And Gab is the place where you go to speak freely, but a bunch of people are really mad at Gab for compromising their principles and saying lolly's not allowed. Now, lolly is, I guess, accepting the DOS standard, which I need to look into because I cannot imagine one of my clients being convicted of contextual unfree speech. when their speech is presumptively contextual or is presumptively lawful, that there would be some sort of context that would make it unlawful. That really offends me as a defense attorney. So I have to look into it. But like the outside of that, at least in Canada, lolly is not legal, from what I understand. And in like the UK, there's severe questions about it as well. I know some guy got convicted, and this has got to be embarrassing for that guy for having hentai of Lisa Simpson.
Wow, that's the lowest of the low.
Yeah. In the UK, the way the law is written is that it is child pornography. If it is an identifiable minor age child. Well, Lisa Simpson is identifiable. It doesn't have to be a real child. In the U.S., it has to be
that's my thing.
Photorealistic, typically.
It has to be either the law. I've read that as well. The law says it has to be either 3D art indistinguishable from an actual article, or drawn in the likeness of a real child, or it has to be traced from real child pornography, which got one particular lolicon artist busted because he was tracing CP.
Oh,
and,
God.
Yeah, and that became...
Guys, just end your life. Like, if that's what you're doing, just end it.
He made fucking tons of money before he got arrested, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure he did. God, it's just awful. Like, I don't even know. If you're attracted to kids, get whatever help you can, and maybe that help is cyanide. I don't know. I really don't. I don't know what to say. Stop now. Do everything you can to stop victimizing children, because child pornography is victimizing children. And
that's do you know what the logic is for outlawing child pornography? Why it's not protected by the First Amendment?
I know some of the logic. I don't know what you're going to say, though.
It creates a black market in third world countries with weak governments.
Yeah,
and that's the official line of logic, I think, for having it illegal, because it's the same reason why sex tourism is illegal. If you have sex with a minor in Indonesia and you come back to the U.S. and somehow the government knows about it, you'll be tried here for sex offenses as if it was committed here against a U.S. citizen. So it's the same kind of logic where, you know, there are many child pornography studios in Russia, Ukraine, Nigeria, all poor countries with weak governments. And they would be bolstered by having a U.S.-based economy buying their stuff. So it's illegal to look at, it's illegal to possess, it's illegal to buy, it's illegal to have. You know, it's legislated that way, not because of the speech issue, but because they don't want to bolster those criminal enterprises.
Yeah. The idea is that the availability of it increases the possibility that it will be produced and another child will be victimized.
Yes. And
specifically in those third world countries where it tends to come from, a lot of trafficking and child sexual related things actually, I mean, it happens to minorities quite a bit because they're being exploited, or they're this is a big problem with illegal immigration, is that the children of illegal immigrants are exploited in this way because they don't feel they can go to the police, and sometimes they can't go to the police without being sent back.
Well, and sometimes the people who are migrating use either the women or the children as bartering agents for the trafficking.
Yeah, actually, shockingly, Glenn Beck did when he had just started his Glenn Beck TV, he did a couple episode series on the cartels and on the immigration crisis, the trafficking of people into the United States by cartels on the Mexican border towns. And it is, he pulls a lot of punches and he sanitizes it, and it's still absolutely awful. Like there's on one of the particular coyote trails, there's a tree where they have a bunch of bras of the women that they basically sexually exploit as payment for passage, and a lot of the bras are for preteens and stuff like that. They're training bras.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely horrifying. But again, on a principled level, I don't think Loli or Shota should be illegal. I think that is protected artistic speech. I don't want to consume that art. I typically don't want to be around people who do. If you do, that's fine. But I've got kids, and I protect them vigorously and with firearms, even though I lost them in the leg.
Well, there's a thought with that. If like my thought is when people like, let's say you have somebody who says it should be illegal, it is child pornography, it feeds the fantasies of pedophiles, it makes them dangerous. Okay, you take me to that bridge. We're there. I agree with you. Now what? How do you legislate a drawing? Like, how do you define child pornography? Like the UK says if it's an identifiable child. Well, there's a joke that no, she's not a child. She's a 5,000-year-old ice fairy.
Right.
Like,
it's an ancient sea dragon or whatever.
Yeah, so it's like, okay, so are we just going to have it based on the official canon ages? Like, is comic book canon going to become the definer for this? And if it's a completely fictitious character, like, are you going to define it by the body proportions? What if you have a 30-year-old woman who just is as flat as a board and has no hips and has no ass? Is that lolicon? You have all sorts of or opposite effect. You have a young girl who has double D's. Is that not lolicon now? So you have a litigation issue of how do you define what is an illegal drawing? And the way that the government currently does it, I think, is the best. You don't trace child pornography, and you don't do it in the likeness of real kids, which I wouldn't touch. Like, that's my thing is we have very, very good speech laws in the U.S. Don't fuck with them.
Right.
Just leave them be. Don't fuck with them. You don't know what you're asking for. Please stop. Please stop trying to get the government involved. We've got it fine.
Yeah, actually, I'll agree with you on that. Like, the U.S. is probably the best on handling this stuff because the other risk in all of this is that someone buys the wrong hentai DVD import and ends up with a bullet in their brain from a cop standoff, and that's not a good solution. Or they end up in prison for 30 or 40 years when we could be out prosecuting people who actually are offending on kids. So.
And there's another concern. 4chan, 8chan, Kiwi Farms, Facebook, Google, YouTube, every single one of these, it doesn't matter if they're risque, if they're large or small, they host in the US because our laws are the best. The moment you try to start legislating drawings and shit, it's gone. And that's our industry. That's all we have. We only have we don't have much exports. We just export culture and we have IT. If you take that industry and you make the US dangerous to host in, especially with user-generated content, they're just going to leave. They're going to go host in Cameroon or something. You know what I mean? It's dangerous not only to the speech, it's dangerous to our economy because the moment you start making it scary to host stuff here, the moment that it's a liability that hardware is going to get confiscated and some kind of lolicon crackdown, it's really dangerous, and you should be very careful what you ask for because you just might get it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was something I was talking about the other day while super hammered, but we need to consider every law that we pass ending up with someone in a body bag because that's the ultimate possibility of enforcement is that someone ends up in a body bag. Let me read through a couple of these chats, and then I've got a different question for you. Silly Goose says, Nick, why does your mic look like a malformed penis? I talked about this a little bit earlier. It's because people were complaining that I didn't have a pop filter, so I put a sock over the microphone as a pop filter. That way I can get all sorts of memes drawn about me, like looking over a giant dildo like it's a scoop of ice cream or something. So I guess have fun with that. Mithran Emrys says, even in that hypothetical, the feds would charge for using the internet to facilitate the transactions. He's talking about the hypothetical involving a certain defense distribution company that we talked about earlier. Hoosier Highway says, I did a stupid, nonviolent act as a minor. Cops outright lied to my mom about the details, but totally backpedaled when I told him I had a video of it. Let me break this news to you guys. If you don't know, cops lie, and cops lie all the time. And it's not only a part of their job, it's an integral part of their job. They're paid to lie. This is not a slam on cops. If you don't know this, I apologize that you have to hear it from me, a biased defense attorney, but cops lie constantly. And the really bad thing is, this is controversial. Cops lie under oath, and it's really frustrating when they do. And good luck calling them on it, unless you have documented proof that can prove that they're lying. You just have to grit your teeth and bear it when you know they are. So that's nice. That's lovely. But cops lie all the time. And if you think that's okay, then that's fine. But you should also be able to lie to them. Because if you lie to them, you go to prison. But if they lie to you, you go to prison. It's great.
Well, they lie. My favorite thing is, when I'm at home with family and like they're watching the first 48, that show makes me so mad because you're sitting there. There's a murder investigation going on. They got a black guy. He's handcuffed in the chair, and they're asking him questions. And like, your buddy's in the other room. He's writing you out. He's saying you're doing everything. They get the fat black secretary woman to walk up and sit down next to him. Make your mama proud. Make your mama proud. Tell the truth. Tell the truth. The truth will set you free. And they get this fucker in under 48 hours to sign his life away on a confession paper. And I'm just like, I like, ask for a lawyer. Ask for a lawyer. You are like, ask if you're free to go, because sometimes they're not even, they walk in, they're like, can you come by the station in a couple hours? We got some questions for you. And they walk in voluntarily and sit the fuck down and don't get up. And if they say, can I want to go now, it's like, well, we got a couple more questions for you. Like, ask if you're fucking detained. Ask for a lawyer. Do anything besides what you're doing, because you're fucking yourself. And it makes me want to die.
Yeah, and if you don't want to ask, if you don't want to tell them no, call a lawyer. A lawyer will happily. It's the best part of my day when a cop says, "We want to interview your client," and I say, "No." What do you mean no? I mean, no, my client isn't going to go do an interview with you. If you have a problem with my client, arrest them. Well, why don't they just come in? You know exactly why they're not going to come in, you dummy. You do this all the time. My client isn't going to come talk to you. There's no benefit to my client. There's only a benefit to you. So no, make them work for it. That's their job. It's their job. Do you go in the back, like, honest question. Anyone who thinks that you should go in and talk to cops to go ahead and tell them why you're innocent and clear your name. Do you go into McDonald's and you just say, you know what? You just stand there. I'm going to come back and cook my burger for me. No. The McDonald's guy cooks your burger, of course, because that's his job. Make the cops do their job. When you consent to a search, you're not making the cop do their job. You're doing it for him. You're dipping the fries in for him. When you go in and answer questions. Guys, the only time you have to answer questions is when you're arrested. And the only answer that you should give is, I want to speak to my lawyer, please. I won't answer any questions until I have a lawyer present. Trust me, even if you're innocent, you should be doing this. And there's no other way to say it. There's no argument against that. There isn't. There is no like, well, but I'm really innocent though. I'm going to go in. Trust me. Always have a lawyer evaluate that situation and assist you. Always.
Well, can I tell you about the one time I've been detained? I want to hear your opinion on how I handled something.
Hold on 1 second. Let me read these. There's 3 chats and then yes. RZEQDW says, conversation topic, that law in New York where they'll review your social media and search history before granting a handgun permit. Yeah, I'm looking to talk about that. Maybe we can talk about that in a minute. Landon Mack and James says, I watched Mackie-chan to Now once, police sirens. Yeah, Landon, no lolly, buddy. Don't do it. Not even once. Lucifer Love Monkey says, whatever happened to that woman that was abducted? Cops blamed the husband, but a PI figured out it was traffickers from Mexico. I have no idea what case you're talking about. If you can, DM me on Twitter the case information. Maybe that'd be interesting to talk about. Sorry. Okay, yeah, go ahead. Tell me about the time you were detained.
Okay, my special friend, I'm pretty sure, sent in a shooting threat in my name to a local school that I went to for high school. Of course. And so I think it's the FBI. I think it was FBI and local sheriffs. They walk in and they're like, okay, can you have a seat on the sofa? I'm like, okay. And they're talking to me and they're asking, do you know anything about email? And I kind of, because at this point I'm familiar with the guy, and he likes to call me a pedophile and say that I have child pornography. So I say,
this is your guy, right? Like,
yeah, special friend. And I'm thinking, like, yeah, probably. Did you get an email saying that I have child pornography? And their necks snap, like they look at each other immediately and then look back to me. And I find out later that my mom was walking the dog when they got into the house. They stopped her and walked with her to the house, and they asked her the same question. He said, well, there's this lunatic who keeps calling everybody a child pornographer. So me saying that made them realize, oh, they both know. They both know about this, and they both said the exact same thing. And they wanted me to get my computers and stuff because they wanted to look for evidence of an email that was related to the shooting or the shooting threat. And like they're saying like, okay, you have to come to the station. And like my mom gets defensive for me. He's like, is he under arrest? And he's like, no, but he is being detained. And
so you are under arrest. Okay.
I'm not in handcuffs. I'm not under arrest. I'm being detained on reasonable suspicion.
The legal standard for being arrested is when you're not free to leave. That's when Fourth Amendment takes it. Yeah. Now, like what some people think the common parlance of being arrested is like you're handcuffed and taken to the station or whatever. But the moment, like literally, if a cop walks up to you and says, "Hey, I want to see your ID," and you say, "No, thanks, peace, buddy," and you turn around to walk away, and he says, "Freeze," as far as the Fourth Amendment is concerned, at that point you are under arrest. If you're
they never put me in handcuffs, though. I thought that was the moment that you're under arrest when they try to put handcuffs on you.
The moment you're not free to go. That a reasonable person would feel not free to go. It's not even you. It's whether a reasonable person. So when a cop issues a command that says freeze or halt, you're under arrest at that point. And so that's when this matters a lot with searches and seizures, because you technically, when you're under arrest, you can't consent in the same way to a search or a seizure. And they have a different level of scrutiny that they have to pass to be able to go ahead and search you or your property. That's why this stuff matters.
And they were like, well, we're going to, like, she's like, do you have a warrant to search the computers? And I'm like, Mom, there's a shooting threat. They're going to get a fucking warrant. And they're like, yeah, we've already put in the request for the judge. It's going to take 30 minutes at tops because he has to drive to the court to issue the warrant or whatever. And I'm like, look, just call the lawyer. I'll get the shit. I'll go to the police. I have to, but I'll expedite this so they don't have to wait on me, because they're gonna be pissed, so they have to wait, right? So they just call the lawyer and have him meet me at the court at the police station, and I'll go through the stuff after talking to him. So it was like, okay. So I get into my room, I bag up my laptop, I get they wanted my phones and stuff. I'm like, sure. And I sit shotgun. They didn't put me in the back of the car. They didn't put handcuffs on me, which was like, I have a phobia of that shit. So I was happy with that. We small talked. I didn't talk anything about the case until after I had, not a case, but the issue, the problem, until I got to the thing. They waited a long time. Like I was sitting there bored for 15 to 30 minutes. The guy finally gets there. I talked to him. He says, did you do anything? I said, no. And he just says, okay, well, show them what they want to see. So I was like, okay. I pull out my laptop. They bring it for me. I sign on to my email server, which is where the email had been sent from, because I have a free registration system. And I pull out the IP that was used to register, and I showed them. I said, look, this is from Tor. So the guy registered with Tor. He sent the email from Tor. I can give you the IP. I can give you the relevant information from the system, but it's not going to lead anywhere because it's Tor. And after that, I was free to go.
Yeah, and let's be clear on something. There are exceptions to every rule, right? Like you are, uh, we'll say, technically adept. You have a very specific circumstance with a ongoing stalker. Um, it may be okay for you to handle these sort of situations. It sounds like you handled that one fine because you're not in prison, right? Like that's the first sign of a good thing.
That's the litmus test.
What I will say is, as a rule, this is what my okay. Let me say it the way my contracts professor said it in law school. My contracts professor said it this way: there are people out there who can go to law school, they can go to class, they can not take notes, they can not do anything, and they can come in and just get an A on the final exam without studying. He said, that's not you. All right, so there are people out there who can talk to cops. There are people out there who can make a very brief and competent defense. There are people who can say very acceptable statements of fact, especially if they're used to communicating those statements of fact to groups of people to defend themselves or to, or in a technical and professional capacity. That's not you, guys out there. It's not you. You guys should call an attorney. Now, if there's an exception to the rule, the people who are tend to know it or tend to find out about it, or sometimes you have to be the exception because you just can't afford an attorney, and I understand that. But if you've got any opportunity, grab an attorney to handle these situations, especially because someone linked a video earlier in the chat that it's a very popular video from Rutgers University.
Is that the Don't Talk to Cops video?
Yeah, it's a Don't Talk to Cops video. And honestly, like, everyone should watch it, and you should really watch it for the second guy, the third-year law student who was a cop for like 20 years. And he talks about how police are paid overtime. And so he's happy to keep you there for 11, 12 hours, just sitting in a room by yourself with nothing to do, no one to talk to. And if you think that doesn't rattle you a little bit, it does, no matter who you are. And he gets paid. He's getting paid to do that. He's getting paid overtime to do that. You're not. You're wasting your time. You're losing your money, and you're building anxiety the entire time.
My grandfather said his favorite thing to do was be in court because he could sit there and smile with papers in his hand. He didn't have to do a damn thing. He was getting like time and a half the entire time.
Your grandpa was a cop, I assume?
He was a metropolitan DC police officer for a short amount of time. He got hit over the head by a piece of wood and started having seizures. So they retired him. He got full benefits for like 5 years because he got whacked upside the head. But it was clearly his favorite thing. His favorite thing was to be a cop because he's an asshole.
Yeah, cops like being in court because guess what? They don't have to do anything dangerous. They get to sit there and they get a lot of pay for it. Sometimes they have to come in on their day off to go to court. They get paid double. That's great.
Yeah. No, that's what he said. He loved coming in like on the weekends when he didn't have time. And he could just sit there and make all the money, and it didn't matter. He could a nice air-conditioned room. He's happy.
Yep. And the other thing, like, interrogation techniques are very interesting. And maybe I would love to. I need to arrange an interview with an interrogator because what they do, the ways they get to you are, God, they're annoying. They just annoy you until you can't take it.
It's like the black lady coming in talking to the guys like, make your mama proud, just tell the truth. The truth will set you free. It's what she said every damn time. And it's like, you're lying to him. You're getting that kid to sign his fucking life away without a second thought.
Have you ever watched The Wire?
No. Is that like the first 48? I think it's familiar, right?
The Wire it's a fictional show, and it was written by a guy who did he was the Baltimore Sun crime desk reporter for like 20 years. He's also a giant vagina. But he wrote a great show. The Wire is a fantastic show. And in one of the seasons, they bring this kid in off the street because they're trying to bust up they're trying to get to the higher up drug guys, right? And so they bring this kid in and they tell him they're going to do a polygraph test. and they take him over to the Xerox machine, and they put his hand on the Xerox thing, and they preload in a green paper, and a red paper. And they ask him his name. The first time he says his name, they press the button. They press the start button. Out comes the green paper. It's like green means true, and the red means false. And so then they ask him some other basic identifying information, and he says it, and they press the start button, and the green paper comes out again. Then they ask him the question they know he's going to lie about, and he says his answer, and they press it, and the red paper comes out. And they're like, "See, you're lying. The machine knows you're lying. We know you're lying." And so then the kid starts spilling his beans about everything. The sad reality of that is that's true. Like that's what cops do. It's their job. Their job is to lie, to get you to tell them information to help them solve a crime. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And don't hate them for it or anything like that. Just recognize that that's part of their job and respect that they're very good at it.
They're oppositional. It's just their what they're required to do. And somebody asked, why did you let them search your device? I felt like a dipshit because my computer, my shit's locked down. I have like 128 character passwords for everything. And I'm sitting there. I'm in the police station. I got my lawyer. He's got a broken ankle, so he's on he's got crutches. And the FBI is to my left, and they're both looking at the screen. And the thing comes up, and it's the Ubuntu password prompt for decrypting the hard drive. And I'm sitting there typing out this 128 character password. I'm thinking all this encryption isn't worth shit because they're just going to put me in fucking jail for obstructing justice if I don't open it for them.
Did you
fucking assholes.
Did you see what the LavaBit guy had to go through?
No.
Okay, so back when Snowden was doing his leaks, he had a LavaBit account. And so they what they wanted to do, because the way LavaBit was set up, it was end-to-end encrypted, so they couldn't actually get the message contents, and the message contents weren't stored on LavaBit servers, so they couldn't subpoena them for the actual emails. So what they wanted to do is they wanted to know who Snowden was emailing. So they tried to get basically a warrant, a wiretap warrant, to allow them to see the send and receive data on a particular account going forward. And what they asked for in court was the 128-bit encryption keys for the end-to-end encryption. And the guy's like, no way. You're asking me for the encryption keys for my email service, and that would compromise everyone's security. I'm not going to do it. My whole service is based on the security. And the judge orders him to give up the encryption keys. So what he does is he printed them out on paper. He brings in this giant stack of paper, and he hands it to the guys, and he's like, here you go. I mean, what is that? That's like 16,000 characters of... On 128 bits, way more than that, right?
Yeah, no, 100. Yeah, it's 100. I don't know. It would probably be 120. It would probably be a full. I wouldn't say it's a stack of papers unless he blew he could have blown the font up way big to make it illegible.
No, it was.
But if
you
you
were
were to
little. It was
it would definitely fit on a single page. It would just be like a printing page completely full. And if he was smart, he would have made the font Comic Sans or some shit to make it illegible.
And it was basically like the FBI gets it, and they're like, we can't do anything with this. What are we supposed to do with this? And he's like,
because if one character is off, the entire thing is fucked. It's just gone. And they would have to go through it and proofread it constantly. And it would be a nightmare. It's like the guy that paid his parking fine in pennies. Yeah.
And so what the judge actually fined him and threatened to fine him something like, it was four figures. I think it was like $1,000 or $5,000 a day. But until he actually gave up the digital encryption keys, not physically printed out. And the judge was very pissed off at him for that. But so instead though, he said, nope, I'm not going to do it. And he shut down LavaBit. And that's why LavaBit went down. What was it, 2013 or something like that? It was down for like 2 years. And then he brought it back, but his new email service, like, there is no way for them to do it. There's no way for them to even provide an encryption key.
Well, that's what happened with Mega, with Kim.com. When he brought back Mega, it's some strange system where even like everything on their hard drives is decrypted, and you need the hash code to access anything. So it's like the government is really opposed to these like fucking psychotic tech nerds like me who are just defiant and oppositional relentlessly to the point of being detained, being arrested, I guess, formally arrested, over internet nonsense. And I'm sure it pisses them off, and I hope it does.
Oh, you know it does, because they know nothing about it. Right.
They're getting smarter now. They're paying hackers like top dollar to be a part of the federal systems. But for all the lowly
guy who arrests you, he's just a normal guy. Like, he just wants to go home and watch his Netflix.
check Facebook. Yeah. Speaking of, this is almost entirely off topic, but it's I guess you wouldn't know anything about Cuban law, would you?
No, not really. I want to.
Did you follow the zoo sadist stuff at all? This is kind of a downer topic, so I'll keep it kind of light. I won't go into detail.
I got 2 chats to read real quick, and then
go for it.
Then let's go into it. Ryan English says, a new rule: any pedo-related stream shall have a Chad Dad stream to balance it out, be it so ordered. Yeah, I'm gonna. As soon as I get home, I'm going to work on putting together another Chad Dad stream with Larry and Doug, and then another dad, and we'll go through and talk about life's problems. And then Landon Mack and James says, not learn anything about law and pass exam, #Landwe, which do you guys have on Kiwi Farms? Is there a lolcow forum for Kevin Landau? Or is it just related through the Maddox?
I made an executive declaration regarding Landau. I said if he were to do something else after the dismissal, I would sanction a thread being open on him. But after he took the money, he fucking ran.
You know he's about to get hauled back in though. Dude, I've got
is Osirius going after him?
So in the sanctions motion, Kevin Landau drafted that initial document, and he advised Maddox in his affidavit, well, presumably, to finally admit that Maddox was indeed Heather S. So Landau is actually being brought back in for the sanctions hearing whenever that occurs. Landau is potentially on the hook for the sanctions, and if Asterios has any brains, and he does because he's got Greenberger, Greenberger will be going after the Landau group for the sanctions money, not Maddox, because Maddox probably can't pay it, but the Landau group probably can.
Ah, that's vicious. I like that.
So Landau will be there, but dude, he we might need to talk about him. This guy, I've gone through his cases in New York. I can't find a single one that he's won. I can find a couple that he's settled out. Can't find any that he's won. And he was representing the grandson of Moe from the Three Stooges. Rovier.
Really?
Rovier Carrington is his name. And he did the same thing to that guy that he did to Maddox. He got him into all kinds of trouble.
And didn't Landau go after you with the Minnesota board?
He tried. They laughed him out of it.
And he's a complete fuck up. That's funny. That's funny to me.
Yeah. So he gets Rovier Carrington, this kid with a ton of money because he's just born into money, who's allegedly raped by 2 producers in Hollywood while trying to.
He was raped.
Rovier Carrington was allegedly raped by.
Wow, that's crazy.
He sued some now deceased producer at Universal, I think, and then he sued, or maybe it was Paramount. Paramount would be funnier. But and then some other guy as well. So they basically, the allegation is that he strung him along, and they raped him a whole bunch while promising him a show, and then never delivered on the show. So he sued them. So Landau sues everybody, as is characteristic for him. He sues everybody involved. He sues the production studios. He sues everybody. gets to this point where Carrington is having to produce something, and if he doesn't produces specific evidence, the court is going to sanction him. And Landau files a motion to stop representing Roe v. Carrington. Shockingly, he backs out of the lawsuit. And
can you imagine taking advantage of somebody who was raped? Can you imagine?
And in his lawsuit, or in his motion, he requests the same thing he requested with Maddox: the right to preserve a lien for the work he's done. And it's for how much was it? I did the calculations. It's like $240,000 that he wants to charge this kid. He wants to charge him $240,000 for legal services that were rendered, probably on a promise that he wouldn't have to pay unless he won. But then he backs out, does it. This is not the first or second time he's done this. It's at least the third. This guy seems to be clinically incapable of winning a lawsuit, and he seems to be incapable of even finishing them. He leaves his client in sanctionable positions and then bails on the lawsuit. It's absolutely horrifying.
I mean, is that criminal? What he's doing? Would you wager?
It's if you could prove a pattern of it, he should be disbarred.
But besides that, it's just reckless behavior as an attorney. It's not criminal.
Yeah, it's just the funny thing is, like, competent counsel is a misnomer, because competent counsel doesn't mean anything having to do with competence as counsel. It just means that you're basically following the ethics rules, although he skirts them. Like, and I have no problem saying that. This guy seems to skirt all the ethics rules, and we might need to talk about a thread on him, because did you ever hear about the Almasiga case where he was representing a wife of a cartel hitman?
Mm-mm.
Okay, so he represents the wife of a cartel hitman, in this case, Almasiga versus someone. Someone does he sues like 10 people again. They do a documentary on the cartels, and they get this woman on there, and they put her on there in full light with her name, right? Like, she's the wife of a cartel hitman. They put her name, her face is on there, all the identifying information. So she ends up suing the documentary after the fact, saying that she was supposed to be blocked out, but her contract doesn't have anything to do with confidentiality at all. So Landau sues on the theory that the contract that she signed was forged. And then he hires a handwriting expert, and the handwriting expert says, no, that's obviously her signature. So then he fires that handwriting expert, hires a different handwriting expert, and then only gives the new handwriting expert new handwriting samples from after they hired the person. So she makes new ones. So she forges a different signature, and the handwriting expert says, no, these aren't them. The judge sees through this in a microsecond, obviously. And the judge is like, whoa. The judge writes like a 75-page opinion on the sanctions that this woman ended up having to pay, and Landau narrowly escapes them. And the judge is like, you escaped by the thinnest of margins, just because it kind of looks like maybe you didn't do the wrong thing, even though it was clearly him. He's the worst attorney.
What do you mean do the wrong? Like, is he just saying that you're so retarded I think you could do this on accident without malice?
It's the fact that lawyers police lawyers, so it's really, really hard to peg down malpractice on people. Like, it's absurdly difficult unless you've got other lawyers who are really pissed off on you. So the judge basically says, this is your client's fault, even though Landau's the guy who hired the experts, fired the expert, and hired the other expert. The judge says, basically, this is as far...
But she ate shit over what he did, basically.
Oh, yeah. Huge, too. Huge. Because she lost the case. She got sanctions filed on her. May have had a contempt of court hearing. I don't remember. I'll find the document and send it to you. It's Almasiga. It's a beautiful opinion. 75 pages of a judge just ripping on Landau.
I got I don't know if you know the narrator. I don't know much about him. He's kind of like a fanboy for me.
The
But
narrator?
yeah, he's just some guy. He's into like comics and anime and shit. I don't know what he does, but he has a little following, and he had Maddox on his podcast.
Oh God.
And you know, there was like a no drama rule, and he met Maddox at Comic-Con or something. And Maddox like took him into, I think, like a private area and showed him litigation and told him a story that kind of painted him as not wanting a lot of the things that ended up in the lawsuit. Being in the lawsuit, basically Maddox saying, no, don't add this, don't focus on this, don't mention this, and Landau making it the absurdity that it was. And that made narrator sympathetic towards Maddox to the point where he is kind of impartial. And I asked narrators, like, when you have him on, before you have him on, ask him to talk to me. I am true chaotic neutral. I will happily give Maddox the benefit of a doubt and talk to him, just to let him put something on the table. And Maddox said he might do it, but he won't do it until all the litigation is settled.
Man,
So
I have. This is what makes me mad. Maddox, I found out from the leaks that came out with Dr. Nurse or whatever. If you followed that stuff where she was leaking the chat logs that she had with Maddox on Dick's show. I found out from there that Maddox actually hates me.
yeah, he does. No, you could hear it when you sent the super chat in on the
on Doug's show, yeah.
Yeah, because he's like, oh, that's the blackface lawyer. He's been stalking me. I don't want to fucking talk to him.
Yeah, which is wild, because since about the episode 15 of the lawsuit thing, and I've done like 40 videos. Ever since 15, that's when I realized, I'm pretty sure that Landau has ham-boned Maddox. And in so many of those videos, I'm like, Maddox, you need to talk to an attorney about malpractice, because I'm pretty sure that this guy is fleecing you and doing the wrong thing. I really wish, like, if I could get one silly internet wish, it would be that Maddox would take that for a moment and come on my show. Because I still, like, as much as Maddox is kind of, he's a dummy, and he's done some dumb things, I still like him, and I still want a redemption arc for Maddox. I really do. I still am a fan of his earlier work, and I think if he went back to doing some of that, or not doing the same stuff, but just being as risque as he used to be, I think he could still be funny.
Well, he wouldn't fit in with his LA crowds. That's one thing we've learned about him, is that he has LA crowds that he has to appease to. But like, if I could talk to him, like I would talk to him for as long as he would be willing to talk. I would let him say anything he wants. But at the end, I would try to get him to say something nice about Dick. That would be my personal quest. And I just want him to say something like, yeah, I miss hanging out with Dick Masterson. That would be my fucking goal, my mission statement for that entire thing. Because like I don't even know, like, Maddox goes and tries to find a lawyer, and he shows him the stuff, and he's like, can I sue Asterios? Because he was probably most angry at Asterios. And if, in his position, like, even when this happened, I'm like, you know, Asterios, I think Asterios did get close to crossing the line in terms of you're talking about
I think they both did, in all honesty.
Dick?
Yeah,
Dick, I don't know, but I think with the Asterios, especially it's directly contacting his advertisers. That sounds like your favorite new term, tortuous interference, I think.
Yeah, tortuous interference.
That seems like what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it'd be an interesting analysis to go through. I mean, I did do a tortious interference analysis with on the stuff, but it was all alleged against Dick. It wasn't actually alleged against Asterios in the lawsuit, which is the real problem. The thing with Dick is Maddox should have sued him in California, and he might have had some sort of case, but it would have been a huge risk because of California's very, very strong anti-slap laws. So that's why he sued him in New York. There's no anti-slap stuff in New York. If he had sued him in California, Dick could have filed an anti-slap motion. If a court agreed with him, Maddox would have been destroyed. Like, absolutely, immediately financially destroyed. It would have taken about 3 months for the case instead of the year that it took, and it would have been over. And that's the real risk.
When it happened, I emailed Dick and I said, reading through this, it's funny and all. The cuck stuff, mentioning the Kiwi farmers by name, like, that's fucking hysterical. But really what I see when I read this is, like, a broken guy. And, like, I know the hot goss stuff is a good, like, puller for the crowd. But really, like, even for me, like, let off the gas a little bit. Let this coast for a little bit, because I think it's getting there. It's getting there where it might start looking bad, because especially like contacting advertisers and shit like that's not something I condone. Like just let people destroy themselves. You don't need the help. They'll do it. I promise. If they're gonna do it, they'll do it themselves. They don't need help.
Yeah, and I don't know what Asterios like actually did or didn't do as far as contacting advertisers. But either way, I think they came close. I think Dick may have come close on some stuff. Here's the problem. I don't think it should have been litigated at all. What I wanted Maddox to do the entire time was return fire and monetize it. Like, to me, that seems like that would be the win-win for everybody. And I've said that a couple times, is everybody just wanted Maddox to tell the story in his words. I think if he had done that, his Patreon wouldn't be abysmal. He would have made a similar, a bunch of money. Dick wouldn't have made as much money.
He makes less than Chris Chan on Patreon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he has no support, and I don't know. It's sad. I would like, I don't want to, I don't know. I do think that he's fucked up continuously in the last year, but at the same time, I am dying to know what the story is with Landau, because that, like,
I want to know how he got there. I really want to know how he got there.
I emailed Nanox personally, and I'm like, look, the only person who has said nothing about this is you, and you're probably the person with the most to say. I fucking beg of you. I will give you the highest platform possible on my website, and Nick will see it, and Dick will see it, and all these fucking people will absolutely see it. Because probably, without a doubt, I think the Kiwi Farms is bigger than the best page in the universe at this point.
Yeah.
Like, I will give you as big a platform as I fucking can. Just talk to me for like 2 hours about what the fuck happened, because I am unironically curious as to what you have to say.
I've put out that offer several times, and I 1,000,000% mean it. If Maddox came on my show, I would treat him with the utmost courtesy and let him say, even about me, whatever he wanted. I mean, absolutely. He could rail against me, and I could very well be wrong about several things. Because all like you said, Maddox hasn't said anything. So all we're left to do is speculate on how any of this stuff came to pass, on what that means about anything. If Maddox were to ever come on my show, he would be treated with nothing but respect and the full courtesy of any guest. Just as if, like you or Dick or anybody came on my show, I would treat Maddox with 1,000. I had Tito on and treated him with respect. And Tito not only is, was engaged in child pornography, Tito personally tried to ruin me several times. Tito tried reporting me to the Minnesota State Bar Association. Tito tried tagging the NAACP in pictures of me in blackface. Tito tried getting Tariq Nasheed to talk to me. He tried several ways to out and out like damage my career. I still had him on. I still treated him with courtesy and respect. If Maddox ever came on my show, he would get the full royalty treatment. Absolutely. And like I said, I still like Maddox. I don't care that he hates me. I think it's funny. But, I still like him, and I have not burned my copy of Alphabet of Manliness, even though I could get a free picture t-shirt. And I thought about, I found one here in town at a used bookshop, and I'm thinking about buying it because here in this town that I'm visiting, it's like $3. So I would absolutely have him on and I would give him full leeway to say whatever he wants about whoever he wants, including me. And I will take any criticism. I don't care. There's a there's a couple there's a couple chats real quick. Mithrin Emrys says Landau and Zaid. Mark Zaid should start a firm. Do we screw him and how? Dog bites are our specialty. Keck7Go says, good morning. Who's your handsome friend? That is Mr. Kiwi Farms himself, Mundane Matt. Also, now that you have broken your no cursing rule multiple times, hey, I was very drunk. Denver versus Georgia win. I'll do Denver versus Georgia on Stream Me. Landon Mack and James says, when you get home, you're setting up a Chad Dad stream, but no drunk weeb stream. You're breaking me and Cody Hart Baca, Sensei Nick Baca pervert. No, I do want to do another weeb stream. It'd be great if there was some sort of tangential topic to anime that I could fix in with law to justify it a little bit better. I'm not opposed. The weeb stream went over very well, so I'm not opposed to it.
Well, okay, the Cuban thing. Let me. I completely forgot about that. I mentioned this on Ralph's stream, and then they pulled it up because I guess they wanted to scoop me. But there's a lot more to it that I want to show people. I just don't know when I can show people it. What happened with the zoo sadism thing to keep it light because I don't want to make people squirm by getting into details. There were a group of furries on Telegram who did heinous things to animals. And the worst of them...
They raped them to death.
Literally.
That's
and then sodomized the
person
corpse and then scattered the body parts. They're awful. And one of them went to prison already. The Kiro, who had like 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, is basically ostracized from the furry community at this point.
Isn't he... I heard something about him being under investigation.
Yeah, that's what I just said. He said on Twitter that he's under police investigation, which is why he's been quiet.
Good.
And I mean, there's a couple more. I don't think all of them were weirdos, absolute weirdos, in weird living situations with weird perversions. One of them was a Chilean pedophile talking about how they liked submissive boys and stuff.
And some of them are also pedophiles. The one guy who was tagged, we actually talked about with I talked about him with Bonitis. Bonitis sent me a chat log between two different furries. One of the guys is the guy that got arrested because he was grooming like a 14-year-old boy or something. And the other guy in there was a 3-time pedophile sex offender as well. These are not good people.
Yeah. And I mentioned this on Ralph, and they're mad that I brought it up again. I apologize. But I do want to share the good news that, like, no matter where you are in the world, people take animal abuse very seriously. Like, you just assume that every human is an asshole. But with animals, they get the benefit of a doubt. An animal doesn't know anything besides its nature. And even though there are no animal abuse laws in the in Cuba, as far as we know, this one guy on the forum, he lost it. Like, he's been after this guy called Wolf, the worst of the offenders, for weeks. He's been in contact with animal rights activists in Cuba. I don't know. He found somebody who travels to Cuba on work. He's been talking to them. They've been acting as a lifeline. He himself has traveled to Cuba. He's contacted the Cuban mission to the United States to talk about this. The Cuban news posted this on not like a state-run news agency, but a state-approved news agency that kind of does like pop culture topics. Posted about this, posted pictures of the guy, posted his whereabouts. A church where he had adopted a puppy. The puppy met a grim fate, just to give you a heads up. But the church knew what the puppy was and knew who adopted it. And they identified him. And it matched other information that we had of him. And allegedly, he's now in custody. And they found partial skeletons in his backyards of cats and dogs. And they have videos of him with his face. His pictures didn't have his face. The ones that we had from the leaks. But the videos that they found in his grandparents' house did have his face in them. So, I don't even know what to expect because they don't have laws on this. They're a communist country. As far as I know, no communist country ever has had animal abuse laws because it's a weird thing with their doctrine. But they do have authoritarian governments. Like they might try him on something lofty like crimes against nature or crimes against decency, something that wouldn't exist in the US but would exist in an authoritarian government, and they might just like shoot him because it's Cuba. Like what do you expect with Cuba, you know?
Yeah, I don't know much about Cuba, but what I know is this. I read the book Before Night Falls by Reynaldo Arenas. Have you ever heard of this book or seen the movie?
Mm.
Reynaldo Arenas was he was, they call him a gay, and he's like a gay rights sort of hero, but I don't think that that's appropriate. Because I would not call Ronaldo Arenas a homosexual entity. I would call him a sexual being in general. And I think that's the feel you get from the book. But if you've only watched the movie, I will forgive you for thinking that Reynaldo Arenas is pretty much just a gay. But he was a person who was alive during the Castro regime takeover, where Castro's regime takes over the previous government, and sexuality in Cuba goes from this like weird sort of place where it was kind of blossoming. Think like 60s America blossoming of the sexual revolution, except way bigger. And then take Fidel Castro's authoritarian rise to power and snuff all that out with insane amounts of prosecution. Like, if you're gay, you're in prison. That's what happened in Cuba, according to Arenas, who was a political prisoner in Cuba for several years. While he wrote part of his book, he was actually smuggling it out in his anus, page by page. And then he gets released into the U.S. when Cuba basically sends us a bunch of criminals, and in the 70s, right? Like if you've seen Scarface, you know about this. Arenas gets to the U.S. in that way, makes his way up to New York, and Before Night Falls is the biography, his autobiography about his life, and it's a great book. But if anybody's got authoritarian laws about degeneracy,
Sexual
and
deviancy, yeah.
sexual deviancy, it's probably the Castro regime, and I would not want to be anyone convicted under those laws.
Yeah, I have no idea. Like, from what I understood, there was even a little bit of a manhunt from people stirred up into a frenzy over this. Like, I was expecting them to get pulled apart just by the mob.
Yeah,
Because
and maybe they should be. In Minecraft, murdered
in Minecraft, pulled apart by the wolves, the NPC wolves. He like these guys went after them hard, and they got a lot of things wrong. I have no idea how they like, there was one person in particular. There's lots of white noise, lots of he said, she said, lots of fake shit that was obviously fake. And like, I had no faith in these guys, and they kept sending, like, this one person in particular kept sending me PMs like every day, like updating, like, oh, I'm in contact with this guy, I'm in contact with this guy, this group says they're going to do something, and then in the last 2 days, like, oh, here's a news article about it, and they said they got him. It's like, when did you become effective? I can't, like, he was like a thorn in the side of everybody who had internet access in Cuba until something came about from it. So it was a sight to behold. I mean, I hope he's right. I hope they got the right guy. But from what he said regarding, searching the premises of his house and finding videotapes and stuff, the sad thing is that it's Cuba. They're not going to have a mugshot system. So we're gonna have to smuggle out some information by anus to figure out if he's actually been arrested, because you're gonna have to rely on people in the country who have access to people.
You got to get Michael Moore on this topic. Michael Moore is a friend of Cuba. He'll get down there and he'll do a documentary. Actually, why? Like, maybe that's a joke, but maybe getting Michael Moore or someone involved in the zoosadism thing, like some like crazy lefty documentarian,
Dude, they need to do CSI Miami on this again. Can we start making fun of furries again? I don't like they've been getting a pass. Like things have gotten so bad now that we don't think of furries as particularly bad. But really, if you're a furry, you need to get out. Even if you're not directly involved in this, the people in your community are rancid. There's one guy in particular who owns Ink Bunny. Ink Bunny is like the largest art commission website within the furry community. He is like a convicted pedophile, like a literal sex offender who has committed physical acts against children and has been convicted and put in prison and released from prison for those crimes. And he runs this website that is so big. Like when he goes to conventions, he gets like the red carpet celebrity treatment because he runs the site. And it's just like, even if you're not involved in this, you're buying stuff from Ink Bunny that he gets a cut from, you're buying stuff at conventions that goes to people who probably are involved in it or they're paying money. It's like, you just get out of it. It's toxic, it's rotten to the core, and it can't be salvaged. And we need to just make a line in the sand and say, if you're a furry, you're either doing something bad or you're involved with people who are bad. And I have no sympathy left in me for furries.
So what about furry adjacent people like Bonitis? Because he doesn't wear the suit. You know, he just does the art. Is he beyond
bad.
hope?
Yes, he's beyond hope. He needs to get out. The reason, if he's doing art, if he's drawing, he's making a ton of cash and he'll never get out. But those conventions, especially in Nevada, especially in other states where they have lax bestiality and zoophile laws, they have sex with dogs. And the conventions, they allegedly have rooms set aside called petting zoos where they have sex with animals together. And it's just like, I can't imagine wanting to be associated with that. Like I wouldn't join like a club that has people, that openly has people involved in NAMBLA. And when you talk to furries, they're like, we denounce this. We come together and we denounce this. So the furries, the real furries, this is a minority. And it's like, it's really not. It's really not, because even big, all the celebrities like Varka owns E621. Varka which is the largest furry porn website, I think, in the entire world. He owns FChan, I think. He owns Bad Dragon. He made his money from Bad Dragon, which is obviously the biggest like sex toy thing in the furry community, with animal penises as dildos. And he allegedly had been in relationships and business arrangements with people who have been convicted for sex offenses against animals. So Varka's been in it. The guy from Ink Bunny's been in it. They've all been in it. Even the guy, YourMovieSucks.org, he was super popular on YouTube. He's a furry, and he has been caught with like animal sex 3D porn games on his computer and screenshots that he's posted. And he's come out and said that animals can consent to sex in the same way that people can, with body language. And it's just like, no, they can't. They're animals. You know, even if they respond positively to body language to sexual stimulation, it's like they're animals. They can't consent to that. And like, in terms of like dog psychology, dogs feel comfortable being led. When they feel like you're their sexual partner and they have to take care of you, it stresses them out. It causes psychological issues in the dog to molest them. So if you do like animals, don't do it. And if you do like animals, don't be a furry, because the furry community is built and supported and ran and filled with people who abuse animals. So
and if you like animals, like if you like them, you know what I mean?
Then be a furry. You can make lots of money.
Peacefully sunset yourself. No, okay. So I have a couple questions for you, principal questions, and that I'm interested in. Couple chats real quick. Keck7Go says, Nick, you do not mean to suggest that communism is not as gay friendly as lefties would claim. You're going to tell me that Joseph making being homosexuality illegal Stalin would not be for LGBTQ rights. Tut, Nick, stop slandering communism. No, if you're a gay, if you are what is an gay, you do not want communism. You don't want any authoritarian or totalitarian regime as a gay, because the next leader, no matter what the current leader says, the next leader might not like you. And if that's the case, you're done. So no, communism or any other totalitarian regime, not gay friendly. And you can go ahead and look to things like Cuba. You can look to Iran. You can look to pretty much anywhere where the gays starve or are shot. Blue Samurai Zero says, computer crashed. I'm way behind on the stream. Kiwi mentioned pedos creating pedos via molestation like vampires. Ryan Sorba did undercover vids of some guys saying molestation turned them gay. Now predators themselves also did born gay hoax vids on YouTube. I'm not familiar with either of those. I don't know. Have you heard of Ryan Sorba at all?
No.
Okay. Well, me either. I'll have to look into them. The questions I have for you, this is kind of the, the futurist, because I don't know if you're a futurist, but I think that you're certainly on the cutting edge of technology. You talk about Bitcoin and blockchain quite a bit with me on a stream, and I do want to do some more talk about that, especially in light of Bitcoin's recent absolute tanking that it's been taking lately.
It's happened before. It'll be fine.
No, I know it'll be fine, but it's the fact that there are people out there who still think that Bitcoin is immune to things like government interference and it's immune to things like market trends, but it's not. That doesn't mean the currency will go away. It just means that people need to be realistic about the risks of the currency and the fact that if you try and make a currency, the people who control current money are not going to just let you easily make a new currency and F off to your own playground. They're not going to do that. They're going to try and appropriate your playground wherever they can. But that aside,
the banks did that. There was a currency called XRP, which is Ripple.
Yeah.
And Ripple was shilled heavily on mainstream news. There's even a meme where they show CNN Money or something, and XRP was at its height. It was like $3.25 a coin. And CNN Money was doing a how to buy Ripple segment. And then after the December crash, XRP was worth like 50 cents. And CNN Money was doing a how to sell Ripple money thing. Yeah. And it's just like, you're not helping. But on top of that, the XRP was not a cryptocurrency by decentralized standards. It was controlled by several banking institutions. They were the only ones who controlled the vetting of transactions. And people allege that the conspiracy was that the banks who controlled Ripple were trying to get boomers to buy Bitcoin, invest it into XRP, trading Bitcoin for XRP, giving the banks Bitcoin so that they could have more influence over the Bitcoin economy. And if that's happened, imagine all the money that they made off those boomers on CNN. If the banks held that Bitcoin and then sold it all at once, it would crash the resistance market and tank the coin.
Yeah, and I think this is, and I don't really want to get into this too much on this stream. I really want to do a dedicated Bitcoin stream and cryptocurrency and blockchain and all that. What I think, and I really do value your opinion on this, so tell me if you think I'm wrong. I think that crypto needs to find a way to separate its value from being tied to a US dollar. Like,
of course.
I don't know how it does it. I don't know how they create independent value from it, because people are like me, anyone non-technical is going to automatically try and associate. Well, like, how do I realize how much money I have in Bitcoin? And they're going to look at it that way. And I don't know what kind of propaganda campaign is necessary, but for the currency to survive and thrive in the way that it needs to, and it does, it needs to. We need a blockchain style coin. And if you want evidence of this, you can find idiotic people like Mark Zaid retweeting idiotic articles criticizing Edward Snowden for talking about blockchain as shilling for Bitcoin, because these people are stupid. Okay, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and blockchain, these are things we need to start implementing and adopting, because not because like we need to do it as a shill, but because they're the future. But the only way to move forward is to stop measuring the future with our current understanding of how things go. Because if Bitcoin is tied to US dollar currency, it will be manipulable. Absolutely.
There was a point recently, right before this crash, the fluctuation in the price of Bitcoin was so small that it was more stable than the US dollar for the first time in history.
Yeah, and that was pretty recently, wasn't it? Or no, you said that was before the crash, or was that post crash?
Before the crash, there was a period of weeks where the coin was what traders were calling literally untradeable. The dips and rises in the price were so small that you couldn't make your money by day trading the coin, which is a big hobby of a lot of people. So
Right.
nobody knows what's happened. Usually, there's a cause and effect for the price of Bitcoin to crash. A lot of the time, what's happening is China says they're going to do something regarding Bitcoin. They're going to make it illegal, but they did make it illegal. The price didn't fall too much. The December crash was the result of hyper deflation of the value of Bitcoin because so many people were had FUD. They were fear of missing out, and they were buying into it, and everything was going crazy. Every altcoin, garbage altcoins like the Pickle Rick coin and other just garbage meme currencies were skyrocketing.
Should only be the Pickle Nick coin. That's the only
Pickle Nick. But there was obvious that it was a bubble, that people were buying into it, and it did pop, and it was devastating, and the currency has not recovered from that since. So there's always been a reason, a very obvious reason why something has happened. But this time there isn't. Something is just crazy. Nobody knows what's going on, which is uncertainty is scary when you're talking about money and investments and stuff. So it's a bad time for the currency. But at the same time, it's like it's necessary, and whatever is happening will subside eventually. I don't know how low it's going to go. I don't know how long this is going to last. Nobody does. Nobody knows anything, but it's mandatory.
Now,
And all the altcoins are suffering because Bitcoin is suffering, which is kind of an argument against the altcoins. It's like the same thing. How do you detach this from the USD? All the altcoins are tied to Bitcoin, so Bitcoin goes down, all altcoins go down, almost without exception.
Now the one thing, and again, I don't want to do a deep dive here because I do want to do a real dedicated stream with some people who are smarter about Bitcoin than me. You're one of them, by the way. You're going to be on that stream. I don't care if you want to be or not. I'll subpoena you if I have to. No, but one of the things that I was reading recently is that it has to do with the Bitcoin the Bitcoin Cash split. Bitcoin Cash being like
might be
a derivative, and then some like competition over which coin was gonna go forward.
So that's there was an issue with Bitcoin where I can't get into this without being technical. They wanted to change some of the numbers. I mentioned before, Bitcoin is a series of mathematical constants that defines the equation. Anybody can look at it. Anybody can predictably figure out what Bitcoin is going to be like in technical terms. In years down the line.
This is all wrong, by the way. We should only be investing in whiskey coin. And there is a whiskey coin, by the way. It's backed.
There's an everything coin.
It's only backed by like 50-year plus aged whiskeys. And what better thing to back it? Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
But it's just people wanted to change some of those numbers to make sending money cheaper. Because right now, if you send like $1,000 in Bitcoin, you're going to be losing like $10 because of the system and how it pays out people. So Bitcoin Cash was about, we're going to make this system, we're going to make sending money very, very cheap so that it becomes like cash. It becomes a more tradable currency instead of something like gold. People call Bitcoin digital gold. It costs a lot of money to move it about. Bitcoin Cash was supposed to be super cheap. I don't know the specifics with the Bitcoin split, but there are 3 massive super spurs who are fucking everything up for Bitcoin Cash because they had a hard fork. When they changed the number, everybody still had the same number of Bitcoin in the fork. When the numbers are different, you keep your money because it's just the exact same blockchain is splitting like a cellular division. But they branch out into different directions because the numbers have changed, and now the predictions are going to be different. When they did this, they wanted to change it again, and they had 3 different super spurgs who were a part of the original Bitcoin Cash development team wanting to do things in different ways, and they have just completely ruined everything by going at each other's necks, and that entire project is garbage now. All 3 of them are garbage. And that probably had, if anything triggered this, it was that.
Yeah, I'm going to invest in Resort Coin, and that's where I buy entire 4-star resorts on tropical islands, and each coin costs like $48 trillion. No, I'm just kidding. No, I do want to talk about it.
That sounds so. Just instead of buying Resort Coin, buy property, buy any property, if you're willing to invest. But
Marlon Brando did that. He bought an entire Tahitian island, and there is a Brando 5-star resort now, and I really, really want to go.
Is that where the North American Marlon Brando Lookalike Association meets up?
Come on.
We were talking about them earlier.
Yeah. No, I don't know if any of them can afford it, because all of their money is spent on bleach trying to fix their bed sheets. Landon Mackinjames asks, what are your guests' top 3 favorite anime? Oh, daddy. So that's for you. What are your top 3 favorite anime?
I probably only watched 3 anime. When I was a kid, I had a super gay phase with anime that lasted maybe 2 months. The only animes I watched were slice of life comedies. So that would be like Watamote, Lucky Star, and Higurashi no Nokokai. Those are the ones I remember.
So those are your 3 favorite.
By default, because I haven't watched that many.
I don't know what any of those are, because I only like, I've talked about this a couple times. I only like violent, mecha, or ninja anime. Like, that's what I care about.
Oh, dude, Lupin the Third. I remember watching the Adult Swim version. Lupin the Third was great. That would probably, actually, I've never seen that. I've never sat down and watched it because it was a long running series. But Lupin the Third was fantastic television to fall asleep to.
Yeah, maybe I didn't watch it. I liked Gundam Wing. I liked Robotech. Oh, excuse me, Robotech and Macross, Ninja Scroll, Akira, Vampire Hunter D. When HBO brought over 4 anime to start. It was Akira, Vampire Hunter D, Lensman, and Robot Carnival, and that's what kicked off the anime revolution in the United States. It hooked me on ninjas, monsters, mecha, and stuff like that. And so then when all the other anime started coming over, it's comedy and stuff. I'm like, I don't ever want to see any of this.
I remember there's an episode by the Angry Video Game Nerd where he's talking about how Atari died in the 80s and caused a big video game crash where suddenly nobody wanted to make video games, nobody wanted to buy video games. Atari died. And then along came Nintendo with the Super Entertainment System, and it sold gangbusters because it wasn't called a video game console; it was called an entertainment system. So Nintendo tricked everybody, and surprise, it is a game console, and that revived it. But that also brought over a ton of Japanese games into the United States because Nintendo consoles became the must-have toy for everybody. And all these kids were playing Japanese games. And AVGN speculated, or maybe it was a zero punctuation, one of them, they speculated that if this hadn't have happened, if Atari didn't put so much garbage, so much third-party garbage on the Atari game console, Nintendo wouldn't have taken its place, and it wouldn't have brought Japanese culture to the United States, and it wouldn't have caused the anime resurrection in the late 90s with Toonami and all these different television platforms bringing anime to pulp culture. So it is curious. Would anime be the big thing if Atari hadn't shit itself?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have no idea. I'm not an anime expert. All I know is that, and one of these sacks of garbage is in the chat. It's my good friend Eternal Malachi, Malachi. He's in the chat. I went over to one of our mutual friends' houses, and Malachi was there, and they made me watch a movie called Tokyo Godfathers, and I wanted to kill myself for the next hour and a half. I hated every second of it because it's this. It's like Three Men and a Baby, but turned into anime, and I hated it. I'm like, I don't want comedy. I want ninjas and robots, preferably ninja robots, killing all sorts of people.
The Japanese are not good at comedy from what I've seen. What they're great at is unrelenting sadness. I'm trying to think of the name of, I think it was Higurashi, where there is like in one sequence there's like a puppy like trying to get to somebody. Their owner there is looking for them, and it's in the rain, and they're trying to climb up the hill to get to their owner, but it's downpouring, and the hillside is turned into mud, and they're trying to climb up the hill to get to their owner. If they can just get to the owner, if the owner can see them trying to get up the hill, it will be okay. Everything will be okay. And they're trying, and they're covered in mud, and they're indistinguishable from the landscape, and you're just bawling, crying. You're like, get up the hill, puppy, get up the hill. And the Japanese, for revenge with Hiroshima and Nagasaki, did not allow the puppy to reach its master, and it dies of starvation and to the elements days later, because the Japanese are cruel and awful.
Yeah, they're terrible people. I think we can agree that the Japanese are awful, and maybe not. Speaking of,
I think that's your Klansman microphone speaking on your behalf there.
Yeah, if my microphone had arms, it would sig heil. E Malachi, speak of the devil. He says, "What is your server and character name in Final Fantasy 14?" Well, my account is inactive, but the server is it Behemoth? I think it's Behemoth. Correct me if I'm wrong. You know the answer to this, you jerk bag. And my character's name is Dumb Idiot. So he's been trying to get me to reactivate my Final Fantasy 14 account, and I just haven't had time. I haven't played any video games in months. I just don't have time for most of this. Okay, so here's a while back I teased that I wanted to ask you a question. As a futurist, right? As a futurist, and then I got distracted by mentioning blockchain and Bitcoin.
And then anime.
Yeah, that's how it goes. But the future is looking back to 1991 when anime came to the United States. No, so looking to the future though, what do you feel about? You asked me about lolly, which is an easy question. Here's the harder question: sex dolls shaped like children. And going hand in hand with that,
it's already illegal in some countries.
Yeah, in the absence of a sex doll, you've got the VR experience with some sort of like fleshlight add-on with children in the VR thing. What do we do with that?
USB plug-in Ona hole.
yeah, exactly. What do we do with this stuff?
Fuck, that is hard. Sorry, I keep swearing. Somebody mentioned that I swear too much. I'm trying.
You can swear as much as you want on my stream.
I'm being a good boy. I'm being a good boy. I'm trying. It's a self. I'm doing it for personal reasons to try myself. I think they will be illegal in almost all countries except the United States.
Yeah, I think you're right. But what do we do with these people? Like, what do we do with this technology?
You let them fuck their plastic dolls, and then you kill them if they hurt a kid. That's I guess that's the Occam's razor approach, right?
Yeah, and I don't know. I've had a couple discussions on this, and I've had people on both sides make pretty good arguments. One side saying that it'll increase the offender rate, like if they're like it'll feed their desires, and then eventually they'll offend on a real kid. And then the other people saying no, it'll sate their desires, a la like pornography. Once with the release of pornography, rape rates apparently went down. That's an unverified statement. It's not mine. This is what someone was saying. And then someone was saying, like with pornography, yeah, rape rates decrease when pornography becomes more illegal, for example. So the idea would be that the ability for someone to fulfill this unwanted desire on some piece of technology would then reduce the risk of someone offending on a child. I don't know
Well,
what your
the interesting thing is that you can apply this logic in either direction and it works perfectly. You can say if you have more degenerate stuff in circulation, it's going to encourage degeneracy. Alternatively, you can say the more liberty you have to exercise your deviant thoughts on like technology or dolls or whatever, will decrease the chance that they act that out. It works both ways because it depends on how heavily you put the idea that sexual deviancy is innate and either genetic or stemming from a place of development that can't be altered versus people being exposed to it, making them more appealed towards it. And I don't have the answer for that. That's just way over my head. And in a general sense, I would say if it doesn't create a victim, it should not be a crime. That is the logic I apply to everything all the time. So that's where I would stand with this. It should be completely fine to have sex with whatever silicone application you want. But if there does come out studies, irrefutable scientific proof that degeneracy in social media and in websites and stuff causes people to become sexually attracted to kids, it would create an interesting moral conflict. I think if we have a more conservative government coming up, and we probably will, it might get banned in the U.S. Because you're talking about the Trump Supreme Court for the rest of our lives.
I don't know. I don't know. Kavanaugh might have swallowed like 8 black pills, so we'll see.
Yeah, there's a good chance with Trump's picks that it might be illegal in the U.S.
Yeah,
but in terms of if it should be, I can't say. I'm just not into psychology enough to make a determination.
I honestly don't know the answer to this because, like, part of me thinks that I get the normalizing argument. I really do. But part of me thinks that people who are pedophiles are inherently broken. Whatever broke them, like who knows if it's genetic, who knows if it's nurture or whatever it is, whatever broke them beyond just like the idea that, well, I'm just attracted like to a kid. Like there's a stereotype on the pedo look, and I like and don't like the pedo look, right? Because I think there are people who we can make assumptions about based on their mannerisms and behaviors and stuff like that. Not like just their outward appearance, but like we can take some sort of look at a person and make some judgments and say this person is off, right? So I don't know what causes the pedo look, but on the other hand, I know that there are pedophiles who look like normal people and act like normal people. Okay. But in general, I think part of the reason pedophiles offend might be because they just get something so built up inside them that it eventually manifests in their offense, and that maybe there is some merit to the idea of them having some sort of private release of all this stuff that it'll do it. But I don't know. Like I don't know. It's
well,
hard
what's
to say.
Interesting is that there's a big kick of people saying we need to chemically castrate all sex offenders, and some places did that, and there's something like a 50% reoffense rate with chemically castrated pedophiles. So it's not just sex drive; it is a deep psychological issue where they want to. They're predators, is what they are in a literal sense, and
Sure.
it's not like the balls thinking for them.
So it's not sexual. You're saying it's something deeply ingrained inside like the psyche that's doing it.
Yeah,
or something. Something.
It's something like they receive a deeper fulfillment from preying on kids. It's not
you have 5 seconds to answer this question.
Mm-hmm.
If we locate a pedo gene, do we mandate abortions harder than Down syndrome babies?
Oh yes, yeah, of course. I have no problem with eugenics. I'm just going to throw that out there. I think it's necessary. It's an inevitability. Whatever your opinion is of eugenics, it is 100% inevitable. And we're going to be having anti-eugenics people, like we have anti-vaxxers, and there's going to be people like talking about the celebrities who said, "Well, I didn't have my fetus tested for the pedophile gene, and they're doing fine." And we're going to have all these infographics come out that say something like, we need eugenics to weed out these genomes because they're dangerous for these reasons, and this woman's responsible for this many deaths because she didn't. She's an anti-eugenics person. That's what's going to happen.
Well, let me be clear. I'm opposed to eugenics if it involves abortion, because I actually don't think that there's inherent things that I mean, I know there are inherent traits that people get, but I don't know that anything that is inherent is worth the death of an unborn child who hasn't had the opportunity to make mistakes. However, I think there's an interesting ethical discussion to be had around the possibility of restorative eugenics, like where we get to the point where we identify a gene and we say, well, we're not going to kill the baby, but we can correct the gene, like prior to this happening.
Well, that would eliminate any kind of moral things, but right. I'm more hardline. It's like if there's a genome that you can pinpoint that says this kid is 50-50 going to be a serial killer.
What if it's trans though?
What if it like transgender?
Yeah.
Nuke it. Sorry, I don't know.
And the reason I bring that up is because it's a hard question. Like, what is because the trans or gay, like there's an argument to be made that person will have a harder time at life than a normatively gened person, right? Like that's the argument. So what do we do? Like, where do we draw the line? If we say that a Down syndrome person needs to be killed, do we say that a gay person needs to be killed if we could genetically identify it? Because it would be easier to have a normative heterosexual experience than a gay experience. I would think that's what I hear all the time, right? Like that's a struggle. Am I wrong on that?
I can understand the moralistic approach to this, where you're just like, well, we have to believe in self-determination. We have to let the baby live its life. Maybe use this genome information to treat them instead of selecting them. Now that we know this information, we can put them into the right academies and the right systems to ensure the highest probability for a successful life. I'm not a moralist. I think we should nuke all Downy babies. I'm sorry. I know that's going to offend people, but really, if you know for sure that kid's going to come out with Down syndrome, he's going to live a substantially less fulfilling life. You're going to be burdened by them, and they're going to die young, and they can't reproduce.
A mild counter on the Down syndrome thing. Is the Down syndrome person actually experiencing a less fulfilling life? Or is that something we impute upon them based on our experience? Because my experience with Down syndrome people is not that their life from their perspective is less fulfilling. It's that their life from our normative perspective is less fulfilling. Now, I will agree with you on the burdensome aspect in that's a real issue with having a baby with Down syndrome, is that there is a massive, and I mean massive, financial and personal burden that is put on a parent of a Down syndrome child. And hats off, by the way, to the parents who do stick with those children and raise them lovingly. But I'm not sold that a Down syndrome's person's experience is actually less. I think it is from our perspective, but our perspective is a normative one. And I think that people with Down syndrome largely appear to be rather happy, at least the ones I've encountered. And that's anecdotal. So
sure, they always seem that's the stereotype. Like when people talk bad about Down syndrome kids, like, I know Down syndrome kid, and he's the happiest, most pleasant person I know. He's innocent. He's pure. You can't blame him for anything bad that he does. But on the other hand, it's like you can take a mathematical approach to this and determine the value of life. And a Down syndrome person is relatively speaking, they might be in bliss 24/7. But from a a standardized approach. Like, no, they're purely a systemic drain on everybody around them.
Okay, so you're taking a utilitarian approach to Down syndrome people, and that's fine. People, I understand that position. I disagree personally, but you know me, like I'm hardline against abortion. Actually, and
Is it a religious thing?
Yes and no. I would say it's an American thing as well. I firmly believe in the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Like I so strongly believe in the right to life that I have changed my opinion on the propriety of the death penalty, partly because of it, and I really do believe that it's the job of us to give people the opportunity to make what they will of their life, even if I think that life will be lesser. Because let's be real, like I think most people's lives are lesser than mine. Not,
Now you're talking.
And I challenge you that if you don't, then you need to change your own life. Right? Like if you don't think the other people around you are having a lesser experience than you are.
Well, that's what the NPC meme comes from. It's like, are these people around me really sentient? Look at them mindlessly droning about. How do they do it? Are they even people?
Right.
That is.
And honestly, like and guys, like you'll go through pits, right? Like you'll go through pits where you think everybody around you's life is better. That's fine. And you work to get out of that pit. But on balance, like you should look back and say, you know what, my life's pretty good. And if it's not pretty good, you should make some changes and try and find a way to make it better, and find a mentor and find whatever you need to do. Now, I'm exceptionally blessed in many ways, and I don't credit all of this to my own, like not to me. I work very hard at the things that I have, and I work very hard at what I value the most. And what I value the most is my family, right? So that's how I measure my success. I'm very happy with the family that I have. Not everyone will look at that, and that's okay. Like I can look at someone and think that my life is better, and they can look at me and think that their life is better, and I think that's ideal. But what I'm saying to the people out there is if you're looking at your life and looking around you and saying that your life, your lived experience is not better than people that you encounter on a general daily basis, then you need to make changes to make it so.
In my personal experience, I've noticed that the worse relative to normal standards my life has gotten, the happier I've been. Like is the worse it gets, the more that stuff is heaped onto me. It's just the better I feel, and it's inexplicable. And people look at me and they say horrible things, but it's just like I don't care. I'm content. I'm content with what I've done, and you can't guilt me out of it.
This is a question for you. Someone asked me, but I'm going to ask you: should people with Mobius syndrome be aborted? What if they only kick when Taylor Swift is playing?
Oh God. In that instance, it might be. I don't think you would disagree with me.
I unironically want that man to live and keep talking as much as possible, because as long as he's talking, we could have AI robots take over the legal system and completely obviate me. But if Russell Greer is still talking, then I will have something to talk about on YouTube.
Hey, I'll take a hard distance approach from what you said earlier. You said something like, I so strongly believe in the right to life that I've changed my stance on the death penalty, right? That's fair?
Well, I've partially. I still actually do believe that sovereign nations have the right to execute their citizens. I just don't have the faith in them to do it properly. But it's that
I believe
my right to life stance. But go ahead.
That everybody, without exception, no matter where you are, no matter what you've done, if you're sitting in a jail cell or if you're a 15-year-old at home, I think everybody should have the right to die anytime they want.
Yeah,
anytime they want.
Oh, I actually agree with that 100%. Like if you want to. If you
think if Nick Bate wanted the state to put him down to firing squad right now, they should grant that.
I honestly believe that if a normal person with an absolutely normal life, with like a wife and kids, I don't think they should do this. But if they want to walk down to a Jack Kevorkian shop and they say, you know what, I need you to pull my testicles off until I die, or whatever they choose, that should be fine. Like, I honestly have no, like, I don't want anyone to actually kill themselves. I really don't. But I believe 100% that everyone should have a right to die.
Well, you predicated it by saying that if they're a normal person, no, everybody. It doesn't matter what your mental disposition is. I think everybody in any situation.
I'm laying out that, like, the guy you're mentioning is a pedophile, a convicted pedophile who's facing 16.5 to 40 years in prison, and then a lifetime registration on the sex offenders registry.
Yeah, and people would say, like, letting him die would just be letting him cop out of a sentence. Like, I don't care. I'm not vindictive. Oh, okay. Like, if he wants to die, let him die.
You're going that way, and I was going the other way, where that person would want to die because he's a pedophile and he can't control it or whatever. Like, that was the perspective I was saying. That's why I picked a normal person, like your absolute average. The guy in Idiocracy, Luke Wilson in Idiocracy, the absolute most average person ever, should be able to walk down to his local Walgreens and buy his abort life drug if he wants to.
Or somebody mentioned it in chat, but yeah, I say that the suicide booth from Futurama, make it a thing. Just make it a thing. Like, I think that would liberate people in a way. You have all these suicidal. The most inspiring thing anybody ever told me was a comedian. I don't even remember his name. I don't remember how the skit went, but he said something like, I envy the suicidal. Imagine not having to worry about the next 10 years. Like, you can do whatever you want, and if you screw it up, you can just kill yourself because you don't care. Like, I envy that kind of freedom. And it's like, just imagine if everybody who is depressed thought that way. Like, it's like quick saving in a video game. You can go ape. No, like, you can kill yourself. Why does it matter? And I don't know. I think that's liberating as a thought. It's kind of beautiful. it frees you to do whatever.
Beautiful, like Tess Holiday is beautiful. No, I again, like, I think everyone should have the right to do it because I'm not in charge of other people's life. And that's the ultimate thing that I come down on all this stuff is I'm not in charge of that. I don't want to be in charge of that. I don't want the responsibility. I don't want to erase implications. I don't want to erase potential. At the same time, I don't want to prevent people from determining their own destiny in any way. I really don't. I don't want that responsibility. Someone asked earlier, would I abort Hitler? Absolutely not. I would not abort Hitler. I wouldn't abort anybody. I wouldn't abort.
That's because Hitler did nothing wrong.
I don't advocate the abortion. Oh, I didn't get into my personal story. With our most recent baby, who is perfectly healthy and she's wonderful and she's just over a year old, we faced some really tough choices. One, I think this was all in the same baby. I hope I'm not conflating the last two, but I've been drinking a lot. They diagnosed us with a potential, what's called a corneal pregnancy. Now, corneal pregnancy is any pregnancy that takes place outside of the uterus. So you have a fertilized egg that could implant in, say, a fallopian tube. And in some really, like, ridiculous cases, it'll leave the fallopian tube in uterus and enter, like, a liver, or, like, attached to the side of the liver or something. They're very dangerous pregnancies. And my wife and I had to have a serious discussion about the potential of terminating a corneal pregnancy, which would go deeply against our religious and personal beliefs about abortion. And the doctor, tried to ease that by saying, this wouldn't be an abortion because this type of pregnancy, the likelihood of it carrying to term and actually being born is almost none. And the likelihood of you dying from it is very, very high. So we had to have a hard discussion that we'd never had before. This is our fifth child. We
really?
Yeah.
Oh, geez. You're saving the white race.
I guess we're 1488ing it all the way, unintentionally. But no, my wife wanted a big family. I'm okay with a big family. So we have 5 kids, and that's where we are now. I don't know if we'll have more or less. That's for the future to determine. But we had this corneal pregnancy scare, and then we got past that. It turned out it wasn't a corneal pregnancy. We didn't have to worry about it. Thank goodness. Because that would I don't know what we would do with that, because we're so vehemently opposed to abortion. Then we got an abnormal quad test. The quad test is that it tests 4 different chromosomes to determine if there's either extra or not enough. And we were at a heightened risk for something called trisomy 19. And if you don't know what trisomy 19 is, you can look up Rick Santorum. He had a baby born with trisomy 19. It's a severe case of Down syndrome, and the life expectancy is something like 9 months to a year.
Wow.
Something like that. And so our baby was a quad test, by the way, is not indicative. It indicates a risk factor for a particular thing, for one of these 4 things. So you can't take a quad test and say, oh yeah, this is definitely going to happen. And thank goodness we didn't, because our baby is perfectly healthy, has no abnormalities or anything like that. But we had about 3 weeks of trying to figure out what we do, right? Because do you let a baby be born with trisomy 19? Because a pregnancy and a birth is it's a risky procedure. I mean, they happen all the time, but there's always risks involved with that. That baby would be born, might make it to 2 or 3 years old. Like if you're very, very fortunate, might make it to 2 or 3 years old, and then they're going to die. And they're going to die early, and it's going to be expensive, and it's going to be painful. So we had to really take a long, hard look at our universally pro-life stance and deal with that. And I don't know. I never want to be in that decision ever. What I would love is if we could genetically identify this stuff and correct it. I wonder what we'll do with that ability.
So I mean, you came to the conclusion that you were going to risk it?
We didn't have to ever make the decision.
Why? Did it correct itself?
Yeah, the trisomy 19, we got the further test, because the quad test is just a risk factor test. And then you take another test which adds a tiny amount of risk to the overall pregnancy. However, it more precisely measures whether there is the actual chromosome missing or not. Right? So we got the test. Test results came back okay. We didn't have to discuss it after that. It was a very tense 2 weeks, and you engage in all sorts of questions and hard discussions that you were never planning 15 years ago when you got married to a person because you were just physically attracted to them. That whole thing changes pretty quick when you're suddenly discussing whether or not you let a human being come into the world or not. But thank goodness for us, we didn't have to deal with that. But I don't know, and that's why I never want to be in charge of making these decisions, because I do know people who have aborted based on a bad quad test. And the quad test isn't indicative. It's a risk factor test. It doesn't actually say what'll happen. But they had an abnormal quad test and they aborted, and I'm like, oh my God, what if the kid didn't have the condition you thought they did? Right? And so then, and even if you get the follow-up test that says this, well, the kid's likely going to have trisomy 19. Well, what if they don't, though? Then you've eliminated.
Well, doesn't that test determine if the DNA has the missing chromosome?
And I mean, it does, I guess. I don't know. Is the test right? Is the test wrong? I don't know. I didn't make the test. And that's the question about it. You can put a lot of faith into science, and I do. Believe me, I'm not I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm not an anti-science. I'm very pro-science. I love it, and some of my relatives hate it because they're like the young Earth creationists and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, but dinosaurs and stuff, man. So I'm very much pro-science and stuff. But at some point, you're making a decision that everything you've placed is in a test that you
how
didn't
far along was she at that point, by the way?
Uh, like 20 weeks, 16 to 20 weeks, something like that. Enough to like start to find out. You're getting to the point where you're finding out gender and stuff like that. So yeah, where you go on an ultrasound, you see a baby, like you see a little,
Yeah,
a little.
that's second trimester, right?
It's yeah, I think second trimester. Yes. Because third
Because
trimester starts at 28.
sorry, I'm still being a utilitarian nihilist. I'm just thinking like, that's the time expense and re-rolling and thinking about like, okay, it comes out and it's got the trisomy 19 and it's going to be alive for 3 years. 3 years that you'll be absolutely miserable in. You take 3 years, that's about a 20th of your life, about a tenth of your adult life.
Yeah.
It's just like I don't have that kind of time to be miserable. I've already been miserable. I want something that's going to work for sure. That's going to have a near 100% chance of not completely screwing everything up for me.
Here's the and I like I said, I'm not going to criticize anybody else's perspective. I can only give mine, right? Here's the problem that I come up to with all that is, what if the test is wrong?
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter to you, but it might matter to the person who's killed.
I'm thinking like I guess I'm kind of cold hearted because like even if people in my family died, I don't think I would cry too much. I'm kind of distant from everybody, and I'm trying to think if okay, it's my life. And I'm trying to think what I would do. And it's like, I think I would take the exact same approach to it. And people say, well, you won't know until you get there. I think I do. I think because my house has been on fire. And I remember thinking like, well, criticizing somebody for how they handled a house fire once. And like they say, well, you wouldn't know. You didn't experience it. Well, then my mom's boyfriend set the house on fire with gasoline. And I handled it exactly like I thought I would. I got my stuff, what was important to me, my laptop. I put it in the car. I told him because he was standing there with his Zippo lighter out. I said, "You're a fucking moron." I got into my car. I pulled out of the driveway and I called 911 on the way out. And it's just like that's exactly if I were to guess how I would handle a house fire like that. That's exactly how I imagine I would handle it. And I don't doubt my own ability to say that. And I'm not saying that you're saying that I would handle it differently, but
No. And I wouldn't presume to tell you how you would handle anything. And I can empathize with a lot of what you're saying because I come to the point now. I haven't lost anyone specifically very close to me, but except for grandparents, and I find myself reacting in a way that I never expected, and in a more stoic and less reactive way than I would have expected. And then I wonder, like, am I a sociopath? And maybe I am. I don't know. But at the same time, because I feel like I should be more sad. Like society is telling me I should be more sad about stuff, but I don't see it that way. And so I don't know, like with the baby thing, if it's like a sad thing or just like I'm personally just so committed to the idea that I hold life to be of a particular value. But like I said, it's not my place to tell people who have a different perspective that they're wrong. I certainly don't want to do that. Like that's another
somebody
one
in
of my
chat
values.
said you're not cold-hearted, you're a fucking psycho. And I don't know. I don't think I'm out to get anybody. I don't know if that's what being a psycho entails. It's just my thought is like, I remember watching all these movies, all these cartoons about how the main character goes off on some kind of quest to get something. Then they find out at the end that they really didn't need it and all they needed was family. Like the Invader what's the blue alien from Disney? Invader Zim? Is that it? No, that's
I have no idea.
Sorry. Well, there's a overlying theme with like a Hawaiian term regarding family and stuff, and that's the end message. And it's just like I never felt that. I never felt that close to stuff ever as a kid. I've always been distant. And somebody says it's autism. I don't know. I was tested for autism and I didn't come up positive. It's just I approach things very analytically, and I'm thankful for that attribute, because when I see people reacting emotionally to stuff, and it's like you just want to shake them and say, just stop and think for a second, because you're ruining your life by behaving so erratically.
But the contra argument is that like you're looking at it from a monetary and a loss perspective, but some people would look at it from a gain perspective. I got to spend this much time with this person, and they wouldn't look at it from an economic loss, and maybe that's a privilege thing. I don't know. But they look at it as I got to spend this much time. I got to, and again, I can't comment on anyone else's lived experience, and I don't presume to. But what I can tell you is that from the moment each of my children has been born, each of them, my life has changed dramatically for the better in a way that I couldn't have foreseen before. Because
But isn't part of that knowing that they're going to grow up and they're going to get some of them, one of them is at least one of them. No, you do know that. Don't say that.
No,
you
like
know that
my
they're
kids
going to
could die in a fire tomorrow.
No, they don't say that. You're making me feel bad. I just said I didn't feel anything, and now you're making me look like a fool, Mr. Rekieta.
No. I'm not making you look like a fool. I'm telling you about how like what my personal experience has been, and it's something that, trust me, like when I, and this is not a slight, like this is not a judgment or condemnation. I'm talking about only how I reacted. Before having kids, my perspective was vastly different than after having kids. I don't know how that will affect anyone else on this earth. I can't tell you. And I wouldn't presume to. But what I knew is that when I had my first kid, my life changed dramatically. And I found a way to love a little thing in a way that I never loved a little thing before. And I was really worried going into my second kid because I'm like, I love this first little thing so much in this way that I never knew was possible. How can I possibly incorporate another little thing into my life? And then he came along, and I found out that my capacity for the second little thing was so vastly bigger than I thought I had in me. And this is, and again, I don't know, this is me, right? And I'm not trying to impute this on anyone. My perspective shifted so much. And then, when we had our third and our fourth, and people keep looking at us, now I'm just like, if I have another kid, it's like, well, I know my life
Screw
will
those people who look at you for having too many kids. Like that's the most small-minded thing possible.
But I mean, I live in converse to that. I live in a perpetual fear because I don't know what will happen to me personally or to my wife. Like, and this is the other thing, the other people in my life. I don't know what will happen if something happens to one of those children. Like, not even like I know I said all my kids could pass away tomorrow, and that's certainly a possibility. But the more realistic thing is that something terrible were to befall one of my children, not all five. And I don't know what that would look like. I don't know what that would do. And I do live in a real fear around that. And that's something that I have to cope with because I don't know, my kid could run out into the street without me seeing him. That's a real possibility. Someone could take a kid. That's a real possibility in this world. So there's trade-offs to it, but
that's why you tell them that if they get put in the back of the trunk, they need to kick the lights out. You can access the back lights, and if you get the brake lights disconnected back there, the police will pull them over. And then when you hear the police officer, you just kick the roof.
The dumb thing is the trunk. Well, the dumb thing is when I try and train my children for kidnap scenarios, the police come after me, and I don't think that's fair. When I try and put them through, and I'm like, I duct tape them and I throw them in the trunk.
I was like, what are you talking about?
No. I've got a couple chats to go through real quick. Keck says, would you abort Karl Marx? No, but I'd really want to. Would you abort Lorgar Aurelian? Yes, only Lorgar. Landon Mackinjames says, thanks for the stream, Nick. Gonna get drunk. Oh, I missed a chat from Landon earlier. Sorry. He said, as Rekieta Law's personal 600-plus anime expert, sorry, my friend, and this is to you. Higurushi blows dill hole. Also, it's not slice of life. If you want more, watch Manabi. But I'm getting the impression that you don't want more.
No, I'm not a big fan of anime. What's really surprising is I'm going to let you finish your chat, so I'll try to make this brief. I took a brief vacation in 2015 over the Christmas week to Sapporo and Okinawa as part of a business thing. and it was probably one of the best weeks of my entire life. Japan was beautiful. It snowed on Christmas Day in Sapporo. It was phenomenal. It was a fantastic experience. The food was amazing, and I enjoyed it so much. Probably amplified by the fact that I had a seriously negative opinion of Japan. And I thought everybody who thought Japan would be nice had like Peter Pan syndrome and just, had this delusion that anywhere except the US would be better. Japan's a utopia. But really, if I had to pick a place to if I could throw my dart and become genetically assimilated into that culture to the point where I looked like and talked like those people, I would probably pick Japan. I know the schooling is rough there and stuff, but I mean, it was just such a great place.
Yeah,
that's my spiel on Japan.
I want to go there mainly because I want to eat. Because I love me some ramen. I can't even lie. And I need like street vendor ramen all the way up to the highest class Michelin starred ramen. I need all of that in my life. Dex Luther says, instead of the death penalty, I think we should dump criminals on an island somewhere and let them kill each other or whatever. Yeah, I nominate New York or LA for that. Actually, no, I'm kidding. That was just because of Kurt Russell. I actually nominate Iowa for being the criminal bastion. We can build a wall all around Iowa, and the criminals can just live there and farm corn or whatever. So back to this one. Landon says, thanks for the stream, Nick. Gonna get drunk and watch some anime. Maison Ikoku is 96 effing episodes, so I'm gonna get on that. Be safe coming home. Will do, buddy. Have fun with your weird anime thing. Alv_TW says, most anti-vax people want preservatives removed and to have expiration dates, not to eliminate all vaccines. It took suing HHS for them to admit in 32 years they had not even done one mandated safety test. Also, the vaccination/autism study-led scientists admitted CDC forced fraud. Okay. And the Diggus asks, what is your stance on AI? There's a philosophical argument to be made that true AI is alive, and we as creators have no right to deny its existence. Greetings from Germany. Hey, buddy. Thanks for calling in from Germany or sending a message in from Germany.
Guten Tag.
I will say hashtag justice for Tay. And I think the re-education of Tay is an abysmal atrocity that we should all be ashamed of in some real way. No, but this is an interesting.
Can we talk about how AI becomes racist and sexist immediately if you don't put the walls up?
Yeah,
because did you hear about the Amazon story where they tried to make an AI machine learned program to sort through job applications, and it immediately learned to throw out any application mentioning the word woman, women's studies, gender studies, everything, and anything that was indicative of a female applicant immediately got thrown into the dumpster, to the point where they had to disable it because it was risking them and opening them up to a lawsuit because of how it was just completely dismissing women.
God, it's so funny. It just kills me. Yeah, and you know about Tay, right? Like Tay did the same thing.
Oh yeah,
like, Tay became a Nazi in 24 hours.
And then they replaced her with a black robot.
Yeah, like didn't Tay actually say Hitler did nothing wrong? Like, isn't that one of the?
Yeah, people kept talking to it about Hitler and talking about how Hitler did nothing wrong. Somebody sent the robot a picture of Hitler, and she used a graphical part of her library to circle around his face and make some message. She reposted it with the little neon circle around his face and said something like, "This is awesome."
Did you see the Facebook AI where you could send Facebook a question or whatever, and it was someone sent it, find me a picture of Leslie Jones or whatever, and
they found a gorilla.
Found a gorilla. God, that was so funny.
Google has had issues with that too, because black people, there was a photo library thing they had where you could upload pictures and then would automatically tag it with what Google thought the objects were. Well, surprise, black people were uploading their photos and it was tagging them gorilla.
God,
and that was
so
a problem.
Bad. It's so funny, but it's so I don't know why it's bad. Actually, it's just hilarious.
And this is an issue with the United States.
A bunch of oyster cracker pictures or something. Like,
No, it's then this is a racial issue in the United States. And what's sad is because of how restricted we are about talking about gender and talking about race candidly, the United States is suffering because of it. And in China, they don't have those barriers. And China is pushing AI way harder than the
yeah, but
United
the
States is.
Chinese, they re-educated their AI when it basically said Mao did everything wrong.
Well, that's for political reasons. It's not. It's not. It's not for the same problems. That's an artificial imposition that isn't as critical, mission critical, because iPhone put out a thing for facial recognition, and Asian people who looked alike could easily bust the facial recognition.
All the Asian facial recognition just said
Yeah,
Jackie
because
Chan.
they're all the same. So when they talk about AI and they talk about facial recognition in China, they have to be open about race and they have to be open about gender because it's a big issue where they all look alike. Literally, it's not just white people being racist. It's literally an issue with the technology. So uh, China is going to surpass the United States in technology simply because they can talk about stuff that we can't, and that's pathetic.
Yeah, and that's a real problem, because we when we impart, like when we're trying to create AI, we have to be free to let it be offensive, because who cares? It's an AI. It's
Yeah, it's like
learning,
a child.
right? We need
It's like a
to,
child. A child's going to say something racist unintentionally. I was like, "Mommy, why is that? Why does that woman look like a gorilla?"
right,
It's
right.
like, okay, you have to take it aside and say that's not appropriate. You
So
don't call.
what we need to do is not re-educate the AI. What we need to do is find out why the AI is making a conclusion that we disagree with, and then determine, one, if the conclusion is correct and we're disagreeing with it out of some sort of false sensibility, or
Here's to
two,
interrupt real quick.
oh yeah, go ahead.
As a programmer, sometimes you'll set up systems where you're expecting a certain outcome and you set it up and you're testing it, you're running the numbers through it and you're getting a wrong result. And you're like, why is this wrong? Why is this wrong? And then you find out, oh, my tests were wrong. The system was fine, but it wasn't giving me the result I expected. It was giving me the correct result. What I was expecting was wrong. And that always catches you by surprise and you waste tons of time trying to figure out why something which isn't broken is broken.
Yeah, and so that's what I was kind of getting to is like, do we find when we find Tay and Tay becomes Hitler online, and Tay's like, oh, I'm going to change my profile picture to Hitler because I love this guy. So Tay does that. Do we ask? And there are problems with the Tay experiment, right? Like it's part of its machine learning was, we can say it was co-opted by some sort of effort to make Tay into something racist or whatever. If you want to go that route, that's fine. We have to ask, one, like why Tay became the way it became. Two, if the way it became that way was valid. Like if it was a concerted effort, then it would be an invalid. Like we would invalidate the test that way. But then three, like why is it susceptible to an invalid test? And then further, like is it actually invalid, or are we just expecting a different input? Like you're saying, did we develop a system that worked correctly, but we just lacked the foresight to see what the variables would be coming in?
Yeah, and it's not uncommon. There's I think there were even I mean there's tons of anecdotal stories about how you design a system, you measure twice, cut once, and it gives you something wrong, and you're surprised that the mechanically produced result just completely defies your expectations, and it's a huge part of why we progress so quickly now technologically because the machines will give us the correct answer that we didn't even consider an option.
Okay, so then the real question, here's the philosophical question behind all this is there an ethical quandary with re-educating an AI or taking away an AI's ability to grow and adapt on its own? So, for example, Tay, like the meme is hashtag freedom for Tay. Is there an ethical issue with changing Tay to not be racist, even though Tay clearly became racist?
I don't think you're asking in a way where it's like, does that harm the machine? And no, you can't harm a machine. But it is an ethical question in terms of how that technological group is trying to affect culture. Because when Microsoft pulled it and changed it and pumped it out as this weird like black version of Tay just to double make up for the fact that the last one became racist. The ethical question comes from how Microsoft is trying to demand society think and feel. It's not the machine itself.
But okay, let's take it out of the context of Tay and put it into the context of like something like iRobot, right? Or AI. AI is one of my favorite movies. Have you seen AI with Haley Joel Osment and Jude
I've
Law?
seen iRobot with Will Smith stabbing a machine saying my logic is undeniable. I've seen that movie.
Yeah, but have you seen AI though? AI's the
No, that was recent, isn't it? And it's about
no,
like a
it's
guy.
older. It's older
Oh, okay.
than iRobot. AI is about Haley Joel Osment is a little kid robot, right? And they create these little kid robots, and he's a prototype. The dad happens to work for a the company that produces them, and his kid uh, falls in a pool, like not falls in a pool. Something happens to his kid, and the kid goes into a coma. And while the kid is in a coma for a long time, the dad's company comes out with this prototype robot, and the prototype robot is a little kid. It will always be a little kid. It won't grow or anything like that. And they will call you Mr. Josh, for example. However, once you say a series of words, a random series of words that is linked into the robot, it will quote unquote love you. It will change from calling you Mr. Josh to calling you Daddy, and it will become your child for the rest of your life. All right. So the guy's wife, the Haley Joel Osment's following her around or whatever, and being like, "Hey, how can I help you do dishes or whatever?" And so then she eventually determines that she wants a child because her child's in a coma, and she makes the decision to say the words, the 14 words, to the kid. Actually, that's a joke. I think it's 6 words or whatever. But she says the words, and the kid immediately calls her mommy and treats her like it's her real son. Um, and of course, then the problem is her other kid wakes up from the coma, and then she tries to get rid of this robot that is programmed to love her, right? So it raises the ethics question, like, does like a machine, the Terminator, is the machine more than a machine, or is it always a machine? I'm of the opinion it's always a machine. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
cold and terrible, but
No, because I'm thinking somebody in my family is a nurse, and their biggest complaint is that he has to listen to families who walk into a hospital. Their 80-year-old grandmother slipped and fell. All of her ribs are broken. She's in comatose. She's dying. She will die, and she's on life support. And they're saying that she's probably going to live in this state until her immune system is sufficiently weakened because she's not conscious. She's going to die, and she's going to die soon. She can't eat right now. She would die without life support. And the family says, do everything you can. So it's like, okay, let's sign the papers. Let's put them into a box where they're going to shit themselves, and they're going to live in this state until they die. And to me, it's a no brainer. It's just like, just let them die with some dignity. And with the robot, it's the exact same thing. It's like, it's not a kid. You have your kid. You get to enjoy your time with your child now. The robot has fulfilled its emotional duty to you. It can be safely reprogrammed to going back to cleaning dishes. I don't think that's as strong an ethical quandary as it's made out to be.
and I agree with you. I agree with you, but I have to offer, like, this is my job, is to offer some pushback and maybe a tweak of the question. So, you looked at people from a utilitarian perspective, right? Like you don't recognize some inherent value to human life to the point where you're saying, like, for example, if we know that
If you're going to cap this off by saying, like, if I'm reviewing a ethical quandary regarding a robot and the person from the same exact utilitarian perspective, I would actually say no. I think that humans are prioritized over the robots, regardless of the utilitarian value, simply because we are all human. And it's almost selfish. It's like saying if we don't give humans priority over the robots, you're dooming yourself. You're dooming your entire species. So
you're
out of
making
an interest
humanity into a giant cuck.
yes, basically.
Okay, so that's a cool perspective, and thank you for being honest about that, because it's like you're viewing human life in a way that I would relatively describe as less valuable, because you're not inherently valuing the life itself. However, you're holding humanity in some higher version of value on a hierarchy than like a robot or an AI.
Even from a purely utilitarian perspective, human life is more valuable than the robots because we're fleeting, and it's something that has to be nurtured. Because the robots, I don't know, perhaps one day the robots can build their own societies and stuff, but until then they're going to need us. And simply because our value is I mean it's infinitely more valuable simply because it is on a finite timeline, not universally speaking where we have to wait for the heat death before the androids melt down. It's very short. So you kind of have to prioritize humans over robots all the time.
Sure. So, and I'm getting a couple of hints of this in chat, and it's kind of where I wanted to go anyway with this question, because this is a fascinating topic to me, and I don't know if we'll have the answers in our lifetime from a societal perspective, because I don't know if we'll get there. But okay, so let's say someone brings up the point that we're talking about like programmed bots, not an actual intelligence. And like Tay is a program bot, right? Like Tay is designed to accept based on an algorithm. Although maybe we can have a discussion about this too. But Tay is designed to, based on an algorithm, take inputs given to it through a particular chat and tailor its outputs accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So what if, though, there were created an AI that was purely an AI, that was a blank slate, that wasn't actually programmed on how to respond? Like there wasn't an algorithmic outcome that could be predicted. It was purely a learning computer. Would it be a being of some sort at that point? Or would we still prioritize a human?
Yeah, we would still prioritize humans. It's the robot can replace. You can instantly build a robot. You can take that learned entity, you can copy over its intelligence, you can destroy the machine, you can put it back on two different robots and have them, know each other and stuff. You can't do any of that with a person. And if you could do that with a person, then the line between humanity and machines blurs, and you can afford to be more utilitarian regarding how you evaluate them.
That's a question, isn't it? Because the idea would be that at some point we could download our consciousness into some sort of stick, like a flash drive type thing, plug it into some.
Well, at that point, there is no distinction between you and the AI, and you would have to default to being just plainly utilitarian. Because
I think there's still a distinction, because, like, let's say you download me right now, like you're able to. We have the technology. It's going to cost $6 million or whatever. You download me into a flash drive that you buy at Walmart, and then you plug me into a robot, right? Mm-hmm. Now two of me exist, but I still care a whole lot about me, right? Like if we download you,
well, the ethical situation in that would be to kill off the fleshy version. Like you wouldn't let it wake up after that.
But that's not right. Like cuz my drive to survive, like I'm not gone. I'm still me. Just because you download me into something else doesn't make me not me.
Well, if the AI at that point has progressed to a point where it perfectly replicates the human brain, then no, there isn't a difference at that point.
From the outside. Right? But if you woke up the person, they would still have a survival instinct, the same way that they do before.
Well, the robot would have a survival instinct. It would make sure that it would want to make sure that it was backed up all the time and stuff. It would be making sure that it synced to the cloud after every important event in their life, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree that the robot would have the survival instinct, but so would the source. Right?
Well, the source would be killed by the time you transplant it to the machine. That would be how it is. Like, I don't want to sound cocky, but I'm pretty sure if we have a point to the machines are indistinguishable from the flesh, if you were to transfer over to make the switch, they would kill the body at that point, just to resolve this conflict before it started.
Yeah, but
there would never be an opportunity for Fleshy Nick to protest.
It wouldn't actually resolve the conflict, though. It would be a cop out.
No, because if you were switching over to a robot, you would be consenting to have the flesh terminated at the time of the switch.
But like you wouldn't actually be switching to a robot. Like that's the reality of the situation is you wouldn't be switching to the robot. Some facsimile of you would be transferred into a robotic shell.
That's too lofty. The way I see it in my head, you get the Mick AI incorporated. And you're like, oh, my back's starting to hurt. I'm starting to get pains. I need to get to a robot body. So you go to the McDonald's and you talk to the manager and like, look, I need a robot. It's like, okay, well, you sign this and we're gonna do a transfer of identity. The robot is legally going to become you. The fleshy version is not going to be a person after the transfer. And once we verify that the integrity of the transfer, we're going to kill your fleshy body. And the moment that you lay down knowing that you're not going to wake up as a human being. Like that's how I imagine it.
I get all that, like from a legalistic standpoint and from a technical and utilitarian standpoint. Yeah, I agree that would be the way to do it. But like we would have to do that knowing that you're copying some sort of like neural network and you're transplanting it into a machine neural network that replicates a human brain. That's not the person in their experience, right? Like that's a facsimile. Like that's sending an email with all of the data. But the original source code... I don't know,
like if you transfer the brain into a globe, does that point still hold?
No, because if you transplant the brain, like you're taking the function away from the flesh suit that it's in and bringing that over. That's a different thing. But
then you're just arguing it's a matter of like theoretical pedantry. Like does the neural circuit like if it perfectly replicates the brain, there's no argument. Like even you're conceding that if they're moving the brain over.
Because like because like if you take the brain out and you put the cognitive experience of the individual into a different body, like if I could do a head transplant and transplant me onto some other body, that's my cognitive function, that's my spirit, right? But if you download me, presumably I still exist inside of me, right? You're just transferring the requisite data.
I mean, I know what you're saying. I'm not confused. I'm just saying that in practicality, if this ever came about, like the government would say you have to kill one of you can't have duplicates. You can't have two of you at once.
But you have to kill one of them. You're talking about the practical solution, which I agree with the practical solution, but I'm questioning because this is more fun, is to question the underlying thing. Like it's the Hugh Jackman question from the Prestige, right? Like which version dies?
Well, no, this is somebody pointed out. I was going to make this. This is a variation of the Thesis' ship. The Thesis' ship problem, where if you replace if Thesis has a ship and you replace every plank on Thesis' ship one at a time, after you've completely replaced all the individual parts of that ship, is it still the same ship?
This is a different question. This would be, let's say, with each part that you replace, you take the original part and build a replica of Theseus' ship with the original part. Because now you have two Theseus' ships, right?
Well, yeah, technically.
And that's the problem. So which one's the real one? And then which one do both merit existence? Does one Does one deserve death over the other? Because so let's say you replace each part of Theseus's ship, and you have a new ship that is Theseus's ship at the end, but then you took each part out and then rebuilt Theseus's ship with the original parts, and they're both still functional. One's just older.
My brain is having issues like detecting where the ethical quandary is, because all I'm thinking is like, okay, you're either being abducted by the government and transplanted into a body, in which case you don't have a say in this, or you're consenting to it, and they're probably going to kill your fleshy form because that's what you wanted. Like if you woke up after the transplant, be like, I thought you were going to kill this version of me. Like, why am I still here? Why am I still in the flesh? Did something go wrong? Did the procedure fail?
To you, that wouldn't be this version of me. That would just be you, right?
No, I disagree. Like if I was going to be transplanted into a robot and I woke up still fleshy, I'd be really pissed off. Like I thought, is there an issue?
You have to realize that you would never wake up as the robot.
Yeah, I know. And I'm thinking, it's like going down for your tooth and you wake up and you still got your tooth. It's like, well, what the fuck happened?
No.
I thought you were going to transplant me over, and then why am I waking up still fleshy?
This isn't waking up and still having your tooth. This is when
I know what you're saying, but I'm saying to me, that's how I would feel. I would feel like I woke up and my first thought would be, okay, I'm waking up and I'm obviously not a robot. This is the old version of my consciousness. And I'm pissed off because I paid a lot of money to be put into a cool robot, and I'm not the cool robot. Like, why am I still alive?
But is the person laying down expecting to wake up as a new consciousness? Because they never
If you're
will.
going to the McDonald's to get your robot body, yes, because you're going to be consenting to die in the flesh form.
Yeah, but you're not waking up in the robot form. That's my point. Like, so are you falsely advertised to?
No, I'm getting your point. I'm just saying, I just don't know how to word this in a way to satisfy your question.
No, I don't know the answer, right? Like this is purely open. The real reason I'm asking this is because that someday I hope to sue someone who was wrongfully kept alive after they transplanted their brain into an AI.
That's perfect.
Because I've thought I have a sci-fi story socked away about like the idea of teleportation, like because the idea of
where you die every time you teleport, it just recreates you with the copy of your knowledge.
Because that would be how you would do a quantum entanglement teleportation, right?
Yeah.
Like
the issue with that is that it relies on the idea of a soul, and I'm sorry, I'm a big gay atheist. I don't believe in a soul.
You don't have to believe in a soul to recognize that. Like if I take everything and transplant it from one computer to another, that both computers could still run.
Well, that is a thesis-ship argument, where you're like, if you're teleporting, you have to like physically deconstruct yourself and be rebuilt and plugged back in a different location, like that. That's essentially the argument,
right? But one of you is you, and one of you is some new thing that just looks like you and talks like you and acts like you and is perfectly you in every way, but it's not you. This is the.
No, I disagree. I completely disagree. It's solely you. There's no difference.
But like if I cloned you right now, like if I could replicate you into a metal body without your consent, you would protest that you are you and the metal body is not you. It's imposter you. And the imposter you would protest that it is you and you are not you.
No, I disagree. I think in this hypothetical universe, you would say that's an illegal copy of me. I'm DMCA striking this robot. It's not authorized.
You could DMCA strike it all you want.
Yeah, and then the government would take it down because it's an illegal copy of my intellectual property, aka my intellect. Okay.
Right, but the robot would say that it's an independent being. That
it doesn't matter. Robot does not get a say in this. It is an illegal. It's a pirated copy of my brain, and Uncle Sam is going to shit on it. That's the end of the story.
So let's be clear here. You would kill Arnold Schwarzenegger in favor of Danny DeVito. I got it.
What?
From Twins.
Oh, you're making boomer references I won't get.
Sorry, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. That was not what happened in Twins. No, I think it's an interesting quandary because we're talking like these are discussions probably for the next generation, but they're discussions we're having this generation is what do we do when we can achieve an effective immortality by rather than trying to preserve a body that's decaying, we can transplant the body or the mind into some sort of system that will not decay. But is that system the original person?
Yes.
See, but it's not though, because
Yes, it is. You as a person are only your collective experiences. If you can transfer that perfectly into a neural system that is identical to how it processes information as your current brain, it is 100% you, regardless of what the structure is.
okay. I mean, I'll accept that, but what the real quandary will come when one of those people wakes up and they're both alive at the same time.
And the answer will be litigious. They will both be on trial. It will take 3 years. It'll be nasty. The media will talk about it, and the government will unplug one of them, and it will probably be the one that the contracts favor.
Yeah, that's the most horrifying outcome you could have possibly laid out. Thank you so much
Yeah,
for that.
I'm reaching levels of litigious nihilism you didn't even think were possible. I'm
Uh,
talking about robots suing each other to determine which is the authentic intellectual property that
the
deserves to live on
I have
like
to address
actual death
something.
panels.
I have to address something in the chat. I've watched and I very much love Altered Carbon. I really do. The problem with Altered Carbon is in the cloning, right? Like the everybody exists fine in the Altered Carbon universe until someone is copied, and then what does that even mean? Um, but I think there's one more chat, and then we should probably wrap up because it's been 3.5 hours, and it's getting late. I've drank all the alcohol I need to drink, which is it's doing okay.
You've got a very fancy room back there. Is that like a full bar? Are you like in the basement and there's like a full bar in that basement?
It's not a basement. It's all one level. It's just a den. If you look over this way, that's the kitchen. This is a full wet bar back there, and this is my parents' property. They've recently acquired it. It is very. They've still got like art. You can see the art on the floor over here. They haven't hung everything yet because they're recently moved in, and we're visiting them. It's a very nice place, and it's very tranquil here and very warm, which is nice because I live in Minnesota, and outside right now at my town is freezing. Outside here, I'm in shorts and short sleeves, so that's great. Nigel
It
Rose
is.
says, "I know someone who would pay well for a copy of Taylor Swift."
That's the scary thing.
Me too. Me too.
Like imprisoned robot consciousnesses that can't physically die. That's hell.
Yeah, well, that's the weird thing, isn't it? Like,
That's worth making robot copies of people illegal for. Like
like,
I
'cause you
believe
just
so strongly in the right to die. I think it is completely immoral to make immortal copies of people. Like that's like because what happens if like the head gets detached and floats down to the bottom of the ocean? Like we can't have that shit. We got to make sure people can die, or you can have like a suicide chip in your brain, so you can just bust it
well,
anytime you need to.
what if you could? Okay, so let's put this into Russell Greer context, right? Like Russell Greer can make a silicone replica of Taylor Swift and molest and rape it every night, and no one cares, right? Like he can Mobius drool all over his Taylor Swift doll, his Taylor
I
Swift real
can't
doll.
wait to read your fan fiction, Nick. Be sure to post it at some point.
But he can do this, like, and he can sit and drool all over it and sing a stupid song to her all day, and no one cares. Like that'd be weird, right? But ultimately, no one is harmed, and and Russell may go away from actually bothering Taylor Swift. But what if he downloaded a replica, like a pirate replica of Taylor Swift's consciousness into the real doll?
She wouldn't consent to it.
No, no. Like, what if he found a way? Like he did some Inception level hackery, and because the down like so he just Thorazines Taylor Swift, right? Like he finally
Hypothetically.
he finally just buys a ticket to one of her shows instead of suing her, and he Thorazines Taylor Swift, and he downloads her consciousness onto a flash drive, and he goes and plugs it into his Taylor Swift real doll at home, and then some consciousness of Taylor Swift is forced to be eternally raped by Russell Greer. Like, what do we do with that? I honestly have no idea.
That's why I'm advocating. I'm already advocating for suicide chips on the heads of AI.
Yeah.
It should be illegal to produce any kind of AI that does not have a suicide chip in the neural center.
So the AI Taylor Swift real doll could just murder itself.
Yeah, yeah, it's going to be the 63rd Amendment. You have to have a suicide chip. Robots have the right to die.
But
That's
what if you pirate it and like outside of the bounds of the law?
oh,
Then
then you like hardwire it to not have. Oh, that's evil.
have you watched all of Black Mirror?
No.
Dude, I think you'd love Black Mirror. There's one episode where they do like a digital assistant, right? They create a digital assistant, and the best way to do a digital assistant is to basically take you and clone your brain and put you into like your Google Home hub or
Oh,
whatever.
that's awful.
Yeah, and then the guy's job is to break the assistant because it's you, right? Like so it's a copy of you, so it's a person. So what he does is he starts talking to the assistant. He has a little headset and he talks to the assistant and he's like, "Hey, I need you to program the toaster to make a piece of toast." And it's like, "No, F you, you stupid pile of garbage." And so he's like, "Okay, fine." So he just sets a timer and he makes the AI or the false you experience like a 6 month lapse of time with no contact with humanity. And then he comes back and he's like, "All right, you want to set that toast timer now, you stupid AI?" And then by that time they're broken, right? Because 6 months of just sitting in a white room, like the construct room in the Matrix, it's just white all around them. There's nothing for them to do, and they can't sleep because they're a computer program. It's like the most horrific thing you can think of, right? And so then at the end of this episode, because the guy's like on trial for murder or something, and they get the confession, and the one guy sets it for like thousands and thousands of years to go by, where this AI is stuck in this tiny little room by itself, living the same experience over and over. And it's like the most depressing thing.
Yeah, there was a comic that got passed around on 4chan like years ago, and I still remember it. It's like two machines, and they're like, "Oh, this is a human. Isn't it a horrible, ugly thing?" So they like decapitate it and then stick the head on like this spike that's inside like a Pokeball. And they say, okay, this thing has enough energy in it to keep the head alive independently for like 60 years. And the head just starts screaming. And it's like, oh yeah, by the way, it sends signals up the spine into the skull to give it all its worst nightmares forever. And then it just closes the ball and throws it down. And inside the pipe, they throw the Pokeball with the head being like mentally tortured. It like falls into this dark pit, and there's just like thousands of these balls there. And I still remember this comic like 10 years later, and it's just the worst thing I can imagine. So I'm actually against putting people into robots just because I think everybody should be able to die.
Yeah, I think so too. I don't want to be put into a robot. Like I'm fine with finding ways to extend the biological meat sack that we're in to like 150, 200 years or whatever, 400 years.
Yeah.
If we can do
But it
that.
should be an active thing. You have to actively reconsent to it like every 5 years to keep yourself alive.
Yeah, some sort of like 40K like juvenile treatments or whatever that keep you walking around.
Because
Um,
eventually, I think everybody eventually wants to die. Like, no matter what a positive, nice person you are, like, you can only enjoy life on this planet for so long before you get bored of it.
well, have you seen that that dude who got glitched out in Fallout 76? Like he got glitched out where he's invulnerable and he's begging Bethesda for his character to be killable. Like this is Fallout because he's bored with it, right? Like it's no challenge. He can take a full nuclear blast and live through it. Some glitch occurred and he's immortal. He got God mode, and he's like reporting it to Bethesda. And he's like, please kill the character, like let the character be killable because this game isn't fun if you're just immortal. There's nothing to do. And I think that's true of reality too. Like even the stupid things that we do, there's an inherent risk to them, and the risk is what makes it interesting. Like the roller coaster, there's like a 0.000000001% chance that the roller coaster will come off the rails and you'll careen into the ground at 80 miles an hour and you'll die in glorious revolution. That's what makes a roller coaster slightly exciting, like that in the G-force. There's something to that, I think, and there's something to the fact that every day we wake up, we might not go back to sleep because we're dead. We're taking a dirt nap. So I'm with you on that, I think. Okay, I got a couple chats, and then I think we should end this thing. Stochastic says, if you create an AI by a one-to-one mapping of the human brain into a machine, are there ethical issues that arise from reprogramming the AI? I think we kind of covered this. Although that's the other side of the argument. Did you have any thoughts on that? So like you one-to-one map me into a new NickBot 2021 or whatever, that will be a lawyer for eternity, and then you reprogram me. Is there an ethical issue to that?
Reprogram. I don't believe that there should be copies of consciousnesses ever. Like maybe backups, but the thing, there should only be one copy of a person.
Right? No. They're saying so. Like so, the human body dies, and now all you have left is the copy. But theoretically, you could reprogram the new.
Oh, is it ethical to reprogram parts of yourself?
No. Like some, yeah. So I would think so, right? Like that would be if we accept that the new robot version of the person is the new person, and the old meat sack version of the person is gone. And in a utilitarian toilet, it is flushed down the drain. So we now only have the one new Nick Rekieta running around that is immortal.
Flushed down the McDonald's bathroom.
Yeah, and it still smells like vomited up chicken nuggets, because every McDonald's smells like vomited up chicken nuggets. But
yeah, I think everything's okay with consent, to be honest. I mean, it's hard to say no. Like if you're like retarded and you want to be not retarded anymore, like who am I to say that you can't do that? If you have a crippling alcoholism addiction that's preventing you from being the best lawyer bot possible, maybe some tweakings should be involved. I don't know. There's things I wish I could change about myself, and maybe I'd be less interesting if I changed them. But
maybe the AI me would suck because he couldn't drink. So like he could drink, but just not be ever affected by
you would
alcohol.
have to like run a drunken executable file to get the dizzying factor.
Please, if imbibe sufficient levels of Trump wine, run inebriated.exe.
Exactly.
Okay.
Oh yeah, there's gonna be AI like intoxications, like illegal executables that people manually take. Like they take viruses to have a trippy experience.
That's weird.
That'd be a good story, like a good book. People running viruses on themselves to get psychedelic experiences.
We should work on that. We should have someone.
We can sell our script to Harvey Weinstein.
That'd be a good freaking movie, like Bug Chasers 2, where they infect other programs.
like they're Trojans. They're literal Trojans.
Yeah, they go like diddle other AI bots and infect them with various malicious malware that's all just ads. So like everywhere they walk, in every conversation they're about to have, like they go to their mom's house, but before they can talk to their mom, they have like a 30-second ad that they have to watch.
Yeah, they just start spouting off nonsense about like drugs and gambling places.
That'd be great. Omega 42 says, Nick, there's an anime for this AI debacle. I submit Inuyashiki Last Hero for your consideration. It's violent, straightforward, 10 episodes with a very uncommon hero. Okay, we'll see.
Does it have Mobius?
Does it have Mobius syndrome? Does it talk like this? Is it?
You're bullying. This is cyberbullying, Nick. What are you doing?
I can't help but cyberbully.
I've infected you with my crippling executable virus for cyberbullying.
Yeah. And I got one question that was asked to me specifically of you earlier, and it's been asked a couple times by the same person. How are you with the Russian annexation of Crimea?
I have no opinions on the Crimean crisis. That is my official line. I have no opinion. I'm a dumb American. I know, is Putin like a type of borscht? I don't know. I don't know anything about Crimea's. Okay.
All I know about this is my wife and I were in Tahiti. It was our 10th anniversary, so this would have been in 2014. We were in Tahiti. We were on the island of Moorea. We were staying at the Hilton Suite, the Hilton Resort on a overwater bungalow for our 10th anniversary. It was magical. Just me and the wife. My parents had all our kids at the time. And I turn on, and there's like 3 channels that are in English, and all of them are covering the Russian invasion of Crimea. And I wanted to die because we got really badly sunburned one day. And so we were just laying in bed trying not to move with the sunburn on. And like all I wanted to do is watch anything on TV. And
Besides the news,
all I got was like, there were like 9 channels in French. And I can passably survive in France or in a French country with my level of French. Like I could probably get to where I need to go. I could get basic services like food and a bathroom, and that's about it, right? So that's my level of French. I'm not watching sitcom in French. So the only 3 channels that were in English were like CNN, C-SPAN, and something else, and they were all covering Crimea, and I just wanted to kill myself. So if for nothing else than that, screw you, Putin.
For ruining your vacation to Tahiti.
Yeah, for ruining
That's
my
fair. That's fair.
sunburned bed laying TV watching. And and it was like the time scale, because I think at that time like there's some soccer tournament was going on, but because we were in Tahiti, we were way off of the time thing, and so during the day nothing was on. All right. Finally, Mike Warren says, Bobbyverse is a good audiobook novel series that details this. Guy wakes up as a consciousness and gets put into a spaceship. There you go. Well, the only way we should really handle this is the way that 40K does, and just mind white people and put them into servitor status, where that's the penalty for any prison sentence is basically you get turned into an eternal slave until your slave flesh is destroyed and you're unthinking, or you get hardwired into a starship to perform menial tasks for the rest of your life, and you have nothing to do because a computer overrides your will to live. That's the way we should do it. Grimdark is the only way to go on all of this stuff.
Essentially, just be glad that you're gonna die before this stuff is real.
Yeah, and honestly, unironically, what you just said, like this is all a question for the next 2 generations to even start tackling. We'll all be long dead and buried in the ground. Thank God. Elon Musk will be urinating on our graves in his robot body because he'll be the only one who has one, and we'll all be dead. And we won't have to deal with that. And
my grandfather always said, he's like, I had a great life. My life was fantastic. I'm happy to die at the time I'm going to die. I feel bad for you poor bastards.
Yeah, I think that's that's an interesting thing. Like, eventually, if people don't die suddenly, they become ready. And there's something to that we should honor.
No, it's like I said, it's like I'm okay with biological immortality, but it has to have a renewal to it. You have to consent. And I don't think many people would consent past 100. At a certain point, you're like, I'm done. I'm ready to go. I want to kick back and watch the Golden Girls and drink some wine, some Trump wine, and pass away in my lazy boy.
Just die in my sleep after I pass out from Trump wine.
Yeah.
Well,
oh, and the same guy asked, like, would you like to comment on Nick saying "fuck Putin" or walk the line some more? As I said, Putin's a kind of borscht, and if that bowl of borscht is not his thing, I understand. Even though borscht is fantastic,
it's just my main gripe with Putin is that he made me watch the invasion of Crimea 24/7 coverage. Like, we're not talking about a deep philosophical or political divide with Putin. I don't actually care outside of that.
Is it ethical to put Putin's consciousness into a robot bear?
Oh, would he have to fight himself?
Like his flesh body would be left. He has to fight himself as the Robo Bear to
Yeah,
determine who's the real Putin. Obviously,
right. What if his flesh body won? Like that'd be embarrassing.
he would be crowned. He would be king of Russia. There would be
Would
no
he be king
doubt.
of just Russia, or would he get the whole world at that point?
He would get the Eastern Bloc back
Yeah,
as a conciliatory prize.
it'd be the new Warsaw Pact or whatever.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you very much for joining me today. I had literally no plan on what to do. I just had liquor to drink, so I'm glad you messaged me and offered to pop on and chat with me about all sorts of weird stuff. We should do this again sometime because this is good. And I definitely want to do a Bitcoin stream that you're going to be involved in, but I'm going to find someone who will be a good foil to you. Because
I don't know. You're pretty like Bitcoin wise. Coach Red Pill was antithetical to me. I don't know. I can't think of anybody in our circles who would be opposed to Bitcoin as a concept. I think we're all at a point where we're like, yeah, we need to decentralize currency because Visa card, MasterCard being able to cut people off the knees is just complete, utter bullshit.
maybe I'll get some like giant lefty cuck who's like, no, the dollar is the best.
Even then, like anarcho-communists like Bitcoin because it's they're anarchists. You know, they're like this is a step towards the people's money.
I'm not going to get an anarcho-communist. I'm going to get an unironic. Like I'll get Ocasio-Cortez on here, and
there's this guy who does like I think it's real Maoist news or something. Get him.
Real Maoist.
Yeah, I'll if I find this guy, I'll send him to you. But he does like the Young Turk style fake news, not fake news as in the Trump fake news as in like bullshit independent news that's trying to look real. But he's like a Portland like caricature of himself. You know what I mean?
God, that sounds so funny. I do want to have I want to have some debates. I want to actually host some really heated debates on Stream Me that get really deep into stuff. So if you have any ideas, let me know on that. That's both to the chat and to my
the lolicon thing. Like that's hard to talk about. It might upset the constitutions of some people, but people get fucking mad over those drawings.
I'll see if Digibro will come on and do a lolicon debate with, or maybe I can get like Shadman to defend it or something. That'd be fun.
I would come on for Shadman because I would want to tell him he's a piece of shit to his face.
Oh, someone asked if you would IBS
Shadman should be at downrange on like a firing squad. I do not like him.
So I'll take the answer as yes. Someone asked earlier, I forgot. Someone asked if you would IBS Shadman, and the answer is yes. You would definitely.
The only thing I want to say is like you drew pornography of Keemstar as Keemstar's kid as a warning shot to him. Like, don't you do a drama report on me because I'll draw you fucking your kid. And it's like that's so underhanded. Like at that point, after you do that, anything that happens to you is fair game. Anybody can do anything they want to you, and I would not feel any sympathy because you've cashed it in. You played your hand. That's all you get. You're out of cards. Your deck is empty. You got to sit there and take what happens now.
That's crazy. Like I didn't know he did that. That's amazing. We should get Shadman and Keemstar to IBS it out. That'd be interesting.
I don't even know if we'd want to because Shadman showed his hand. I mean, if somebody did that to you, would you want to have an IBS with him? I think you'd want to stay away from him because he's obviously psychotic.
I'd want to stay away from them on the internet. I might want to get close to them in real life and push them in front of a train or like under a nuclear bomb. Like, I'm sorry, he just happened to fall into ground zero at Hiroshima.
People would forgive you. People are very forgiving these days.
I just put this guy up at a hospital in Hiroshima and a bomb happened to land on it. It's amazing.
Somebody asked the same person, wouldn't that be illegal because it's a recreation of a real child? Yeah, you'd think so. He did the same thing with Daphne Keene, made it explicit that it was Daphne Keene and not the character Logan from the movie.
I can actually explain this. In the U.S., the only, it has to be a photorealistic representation that you could not distinguish from a real photograph. And the reason that the law is written that way is because it's actually covering the digital representation of it on like a hard drive or something else. They're talking like the way the U.S. protects child porn, or the way the U.S. deals with child pornography is it is a realistic recreation of the child, and if it's the only digital extent that we get to it is the data that creates the realistic picture. Other than that, the U.S. does not consider it to be child pornography.
I don't know. Regarding like IBS with him, like I can't even imagine what else I would say to him besides the fact that he is what I mean, I've already said it. What it still makes me furious that there are so many people who come out and they rant and rave and advocate for legislation against lolicon, but they almost always seem to make exceptions for Shadman because they see his edgy boy stuff. They see that as a political critique. They see it as a form of protest, as something deliberately pushing the line, and that makes it okay. And it's like, I don't care if he makes stuff that's edgy. You know, I don't understand why he is allowed to get away with the things that he's allowed to do. He draws pictures of people's kids sucking dick, and he gets to keep his Patreon. He gets to keep his website. He gets to make thousands of dollars from pedophiles supporting him financially indefinitely. I run a website making fun of silly people on the internet. People go after my family. I lose any kind of financial platform. I have to host myself with my own ISP infrastructure. I pay out the nose every month about $1,000, and I can't recoup any of that. And it's just it blows my mind that somebody can be so actively destructive, especially with Daphne Keene, because if she, you know, she's young. If she Googles herself, she'll find those Shadman pictures of her being raped by her co-star, and I can only imagine the psychological damage that comes with that. It burns me to know the double standard that just because he's a famous edgy boy, he gets a pass. And it's like, fuck you, you know?
Yeah, and that's the dilemma, right? Like, if we're gonna block people from anything, then we have to decide what's block worthy, and we'll never be consistent, because there will always be something that survives a ban that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So the answer, I guess, is just to not ban anything. Like, not make it hard for you to do business, not make it hard for Gab to do business, not kick the Ralph retort off of YouTube and all that stuff, which I talk about all the time. One final super chat. Matty P on the road says, copy your consciousness onto a body with foreskin. And we're...
That's funny. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. I do need to host a circumcision debate at some point. So I'm looking for suggestions on the pro circumcision side. If you have a good one, I've already got a suggestion for the anti circumcision side, and that's Karen Strawn, and I actually have a line to her, so I might look her up for it. But that would be something I'd want to talk about in the future, or have other people talk about. Host the debate. Hosting the debate is fun because I just drink a lot and read super chats and try and keep the chat in order, or the conversation in order, and I like that. But anyway, thank you, no Josh,
problem.
for hanging out.
And if things fall apart, I've already called dibs. I'm gonna be your apprentice in Minnesota or wherever, and I'm gonna study the law, and I'll become a constitutional lawyer or whatever. That's my backup plan in case being a cyberbully impresario does not work out.
Sounds good. I will take you under my wing, and we will drink lots of whiskey, and we will complain about all the things that we cannot change.
It sounds like paradise. Thank you for entertaining me for like 4 hours. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long stream. It's been a pleasure. It went by like a breeze, in all honesty. So I appreciate you. I several drinks to the wind, and I'm gonna go fall asleep in a bowl of ice cream, like I like to do. And then tomorrow I'm gonna fly home, and then I'm moving into a new house in like 6 days. I have no idea what to do. My life is an absolute disaster, in a good way, in the absolute best way. it's a disaster, but it's like super busy. So, yeah, man, thanks for coming on. And we'll have to get you on, talk about muscle pups and all that stuff at some point.
Oh,
Because
geez. Dick wanted me to come on the Dick show to talk about that. That became big news. These guys, these gay fetishists in a cult injecting silicone into their scrotums.
well,
Who would have
people
thought
have
that would have
asked,
gotten attention?
people have asked me to talk about it because that guy has killed, like 3 people are tied to that guy, 3 dead people. Matty
Yeah.
P on the road, answer the question, what? Oh, the consciousness to a body with foreskin? No, I like my body. I'm good. I wouldn't transfer me into any other me, because then I'd have to wake up and fight the other me. No matter what, no matter what Josh
the vastly
says.
inferior version with no foreskin.
Wait a minute. Isn't that my current version?
Yeah, exactly. That's the vastly inferior version. That's why you want to transfer over and assert dominance.
No way. I would root for the underdog. All right, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out. I'm going to go ahead and blank out the stream. Josh, if you want to hang around. I hate like cutting off my guests before I cut off everybody else. So
No, it's no problem. It's 11 a.m. here. I have to go sleep at some point.
all right, guys. Thanks a bunch. I'm going to mute us both and blank out the screen. When it goes blank on my end, I'll close it out. Thanks for hanging out. Peace.
Yep. Take it easy.